At 7:18 p.m., my mother lifted her champagne flute in the Fairmont alumni room and said, "Why euro uba for Ethan? Thanks everyone who helped him get here. We should address the person who nearly cost him his housing. Why euro uba?" Standing beside table 12 with a linen napkin folded in my left hand and my purse hooked over my wrist. The purse felt heavier than it should have because my spiral ledger was inside it, along with a folded donor email I had printed at the campus payroll office that morning. I had tucked the email between the blue ledger cover and my checkbook, planning to ask one quiet question after dessert. There were 96 place cards on the tables. I knew because I had helped my mother alphabetize them in her kitchen 2 nights earlier while she corrected the calligraphy on the donor names. Gold-rimmed plates, navy programs, white roses in short glass cubes, Ethan's graduation portrait on an easel near the coffee urn. Everything had been arranged to look generous and calm. My mother stood near the small podium by the windows, wearing the pearl earrings she saved for university functions. Her volunteer badge from the Alumni Association was still clipped to her jacket, even though the dinner was private. "Why euro families survive hard seasons. Why euro," she continued, looking across the tables. "Why euro you but only when everyone owns their part. Why euro?" Ethan sat at the head table with his gown draped over the back of his chair. He had loosened his tie and kept his eyes on the toast card in front of him. The card was cream-colored, the same stock as the menus. I could see my name on it from where I stood. Nora, missing scholarship problem. That was what someone had typed under the line marked family acknowledgement. I remember the exact placement of that card because it was lying beside a water glass with a lemon seed stuck to the rim. I focused on the seed, then on the card, then on my Mathura Euro-S hand. Tapping the microphone. My father looked down at his salad fork. My Aunt Carol pressed her lips together in that church basement way she used when she already knew the story and wanted me to make it easy for everyone. 2 rows back, one of the donors, Mr. Halpern, adjusted his hearing aid. He had funded half the Bell Student Promise Award, the scholarship that had appeared in my portal in March and vanished 2 weeks later under the label "Why Euro Administrative Correction." Why Euro? I had not told anyone at the table that I worked campus payroll 20 hours a week. They all knew I had a student job, but they pictured me stuffing envelopes or answering phones. They did not know I reconciled timesheets against department codes, or that I had learned to print every receipt before a screen refreshed. They definitely did not know that. On April 3rd at 2:42 p.m., I had started keeping my own ledger after a $4,800 donor award disappeared from my account and Ethana Euro-S housing balance dropped by the same amount. My mother turned toward me. "Why euro, Nora? Why euro?" she said, soft enough to sound maternal and loud enough for the microphone to carry. "Why euro Jew can clear this up tonight. Ethan deserves to graduate without whispers about unpaid housing. We all know you euro VE been upset about the scholarship mix-up. Why euro?" The word mix-up landed worse than accusation because she said it like I had misplaced a scarf. I set the napkin on table 12. Mrs. Vega, my old high school counselor, looked up at me from her chair. She had a roll in her hand and had stopped buttering it. "Why euro moom? Why euro?" I said, taking one step forward. "Why euro, if you, euro, re-talking about the Bell Student Promise Award. I have the donor restriction email in my bag. Why euro?" My voice came out too fast. That was my worst habit. When someone questioned my math, I tried to hand them every document at once, as if the paper could make them care about the order of events. Marcy Bell smiled without showing teeth. "Why euro, sweetheart? This is not the payroll desk." A few people chuckled because they thought she was making a harmless mother-daughter joke. Ethan leaned back in his chair and rubbed his thumb along the edge of his program. He did not look surprised. That was the first thing I noticed about him. He looked tired, maybe annoyed, but prepared. My mother picked up the toast card and held it between 2 fingers. "Why euro the university sent notices. Your Brothera Euro-S housing was flagged because money was missing. We handled it quietly because we did not want this following you after graduation. Why euro? Why I didn't a euro T take anything? Why euro?" I said. "Why euro, Nora? Why euro?" Ethan muttered, finally looking at me. "Why euro Udona? Euro T do this here. Why euro?" The alumni room had thick carpet, the kind that swallowed footsteps, but I heard my own shoes when I crossed toward the head table. In my purse, the corner of the folded email pressed against my side. I had printed it from Tessa Rowana Euro-S forwarded copy, the one she had sent with the subject line, "Donor restriction, do not reallocate." My mother lowered the microphone, then raised it again, making sure the whole room caught her next sentence. "Why, I am asking you to stand up, apologize to your brother, and let this family enjoy one night. Why, euro. There it was. Not a question, not a private correction. A public little task, like passing the salt. I looked at the toast card in her hand, then at Ethan Euro's untouched dinner roll, then at the donor table where Mr. Halpern had stopped adjusting his hearing aid and was watching me over the top of his glasses. I opened my purse because that is where I kept paper when everyone else trusted memory. The zipper caught on the corner of my payroll badge, and for 2 seconds, all I could hear was the tiny scrape of plastic against the metal teeth. My mother was still standing beside table 7 with that cream toast card pinched between her fingers. Ethan had his elbows off the table now, like he was getting ready to step in if I made myself look worse. I knew that posture. He used it when we were kids, and Mom asked who had left the garage freezer open. Before I tell you what I pulled out, you need to know why my purse had a spiral ledger in it at a graduation dinner. I became the Bell family money tracker in high school, accidentally. One Saturday at our kitchen island in Cedar Falls. The island had a crack down the butcher block, where Dad once dropped a cast iron pan, and that crack was where Mom lined up envelopes when bills came in. Electric, orthodontist, soccer travel fees, church fundraiser receipts, €1 S-Act prep invoice, my choir robe deposit. She would tap each envelope with a red pen and say, "Why euro, Nora? You euro re good with numbers. Just put these in order for me." At first, putting them in order meant oldest due date to newest due date. Then it meant writing confirmation numbers on the outside after she paid by phone. Then it meant calling the dentist because a $92 balance showed twice. I was 16 when I sat on the laundry room floor with the family laptop balanced on a towel basket, reading a bank portal statement while the dryer knocked against a loose sneaker. Mom stood in the doorway and said, "Why euro C? This is why you euro re the responsible one. Why euro?" I liked being called responsible. I still hate admitting that. Ethan was responsible in public. He shook hands. Well, he knew how to talk to coaches, donors, deans, anyone with a badge or a blazer. He brought home certificates with gold seals. I brought home receipts with staple holes. When relatives came over for Easter, Mom would say, "Why euro Ethan got invited to the leadership breakfast." Why euro then point at me and add, "A&D Nora keeps us from missing deadlines." Why euro, everyone laughed like I had been given a sweet little job. By senior year, I knew the routing number for our credit union, the password hint for the utility account, and the exact drawer where Mom kept stamps. I knew Dad bought gas every Wednesday at the Cassia Euro S off Route 20 because the receipt had coffee and a glazed donut on it. I knew Ethana Euro S campus visit hotel in March cost $189 before taxes because Mom asked me to scan the folio for a Y Euro college expensessa. Euro folder on the desktop, no one called it work. It was Y Euro whelping. Y Euro. If you have ever been made the free accountant for people who still talk over you when money goes missing, comment your city. Hit like and subscribe if that job was handed to you before anyone respected you for doing it. I want to know how many of us learned adult bookkeeping at a kitchen counter with someone else's Euro S envelopes. When I got to university, I promised myself I would only track my own accounts. That lasted until October of freshman year. Mom called me at 9:14 on a Tuesday night. I remember the time because I had just clocked out from the dining hall and my hair smelled like fryer oil. She said, "Why euro you can. You explain why Ethana Euro S housing deposit bounced. Your father is driving, and I don't Euro T want to bother him. Why euro Ethan was already a student there. I was the younger Belle, sharing a triple in Waverly Hall, eating cereal out of a mug because I had forgotten to buy bowls. His apartment-style dorm was on the East Quad with a private kitchen and a study lounge named after a donor. I asked her to send a screenshot. She sent me a blurry photo of her laptop screen, not even a screenshot, with the flash reflected in the glass. I zoomed in until the words separated. Housing deposit, due October 3rd. Payment returned, insufficient funds. Below that, a late fee of $35. Why euro did you move money from checking? Why euro, I asked. Why I thought the scholarship covered it. Why euro, she said. Why euro which scholarship? Why euro the one in his package. The Bell Promise thing. Why euro? Why euro Athata? Euro S not what Ita Euro S called. Why euro I said. Because I had already learned the difference between grants, restricted awards, and the University of Euro S polite habit of naming everything like a plaque. Mom exhaled into the phone. Why euro Nora? Please dona Euro T, make this a lecture. Just tell me where to click. So I told her student portal, financial account, term activity, Printable statement. I walked her through saving the PDF. She sent it to me, and I highlighted 3 lines with my phone editing tool. Award posted, tuition applied, housing unpaid. I typed, housing is billed separately. If not enough unrestricted aid remains. Call Bursar tomorrow. She didn't a Euro-T call the Bursar. She called me again the next morning from the parking lot of her volunteer committee meeting. Why Euro you can, you ask someone at campus. You Euro-re there. Why Euro? That was how I learned that Bursar Euro's office had a side desk with a bell that stuck if you pressed it too hard. And how I met Tessa Rowan, who wore blue reading glasses on a chain and kept a jar of peppermint candies behind her keyboard. I wasnna Euro-T working payroll yet. I was just a freshman with a folder, standing in line behind a guy arguing about a parking fine. Tessa looked at the statement I had printed and said, why Euro jar brother needs to authorize anyone else before we can discuss his account. Why Euro? I nodded and stepped aside to text Ethan. He replied 11 minutes later. Fine. Tell them mom can talk. That was it. No, please. No thanks. Just permission given like a door code. By sophomore year, I had my campus payroll job in the administration building, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 6. I filed student time corrections, matched ID numbers, and learned that a wrong digit could send a paycheck into limbo for 10 days. My supervisor, Mrs. Alvarez, made us initial every correction in black ink. YIFU, touched it, own it. Why Euro, she said. That sentence stuck to me harder than half the things my parents ever told me. I bought my first spiral ledger at the bookstore clearance bin for $1.49. Green cover, college-ruled bent lower corner. I used it for my own paychecks first. Date, source, amount, purpose. Then mom asked me to track data Euro S insurance reimbursement. Then Ethana Euro S meal plan refund. Then the Familia Euro S hotel block deposit for graduation weekend. By the time Ethana Euro S senior year started, my ledger had tabs made from cut-up sticky notes. Blue for payroll, yellow for rent, pink for family reimbursements, purple for scholarships, because scholarship emails were the ones people liked to summarize wrong. So at the Fairmont, when mom held up that toast card and asked me to apologize, I wasn't reaching for a tissue or my phone. I was reaching for the record I had been trained to keep by the very people now hoping I would stand there with empty hands. My hand found the wire ridge of the spiral ledger inside my black purse. But before I pulled it out, I looked across the Fairmont alumni room and saw the whole Bell family system arranged in white tablecloths. Ethan sat at the center table under the framed photograph of the old library. His Mastera Euro S hood was folded over the back of his chair so the velvet stripe showed in every picture. Mom had made sure of that. At 6:12 p.m., when we arrived, she had walked behind him and adjusted it twice, tugging the fabric until the gold lining faced the room. Why Euro? I'll leave it there. Honey, why Euro? She told him. Why Euro? People should see what they are Euro re-celebrating. Why Euro? The Fairmont alumni room had brass sconces, thick carpet, and a long buffet along the east wall with roast chicken, green beans, rolls, and silver coffee urns. 96 place cards sat on 3 round tables and 6 long ones. Mom had spent 2 nights at our dining table with a seating chart, a ruler, and a pack of cream cardstock, deciding which donors should sit close enough to Ethan to feel important. I was at table 7, near the service door. My card said Nora Bell and MoMA Euro S slanted blue handwriting. No degree year, no job title. Ethan's card said Ethan Bell, MA, Public Policy, with a tiny gold sticker in the corner because mom said why Euro graduate status should be visible. Why Euro Data S card had Robert Bell, Facilities Supervisor. MoMA Euro S had Marcy Bell, Parents Council Volunteer. Mine was just my name. I noticed because I had helped cut the cards. 2 hours earlier, at 4:05 p.m., I had been at the house in Cedar Falls trimming the last uneven edges with MoMA's old paper cutter. She stood beside me in her pearl earrings, reading the program proof from the printer. Why Euro Ethan Bell, first in our family to earn a Master Euro S degree. Why Euro, she said, tapping the line with a red nail. Why Euro? That looks nice. Why Euro? Dad came in from the garage with his tie loose around his neck. Why Euro? Pit is nice. Why Euro? I kept the paper stack square. Why Euro? Gia Euro M. Glad it printed clean. Why Euro? Mom glanced at me over the program. Why Euro wand? We Euro LL. Put you near Aunt Linda. She likes hearing about your little campus job. Why Euro? Why Euro Yita? Euro S. Not little. Why Euro? I said before I could make myself sound casual. Why Euro? Payroll runs twice a week. If we miss an approval file, Students don't a Euro T get paid. Why Euro? Mom made the face she used when she wanted me to stop explaining in front of other people. Except we were alone, except for Dad. Why? I meant temporary. Nora. You Euro reach me too? You won't a TB doing timesheets forever. Why Euro? Dad. Reached for the coffee maker. Why Euro? That job kept the electric on in February. Why Euro? MoMA. Euro's eyes moved to him fast. Why Euro? Robert. Why Euro? He looked at the counter instead of at me. Why Euro? Gia Euro M. Just saying. Why Euro? I had paid that February bill from my checking account after Data Euro's overtime was cut, and MoMA Euro's volunteer banquet deposit hit the family card earlier than she expected. The amount was $218.73. I remembered because I wrote it in pink ink and taped the online confirmation to the page. Mom did not like that kind of memory. She liked memory when it came with photographs, speeches, and Ethan's name printed correctly. At the Fairmont, she worked the room with the same precision she used on the seating chart. At 6:40, she brought Mrs. Delaney from the Scholarship Foundation over to Ethan and said, Why Euro TTS is the young man we Euro've been telling you about. Why Euro? Ethan stood, shook her hand and said, Why Euro? Gia Euro M. Grateful for every opportunity. Why Euro? He was good at that sentence. Smooth, modest, and empty enough for everyone to pour their own meaning into it. When Mrs. Delaney asked what I did, Mom answered before I opened my mouth. Why Euro? Nora helps in payroll while she figures out her next step. Why Euro? I held my water glass by the stem and said, I work under student employment, mostly wage authorizations, direct deposit corrections, and grant labor codes. Why Euro? Mrs. Delaney smiled. Why Euro? That sounds exacting. Why Euro? Why IT is. Why Euro? I said. Mom laughed lightly and touched Mrs. Delaney Euro's sleeve. Why Euro? SE has always loved receipts. Every family needs one practical child. Why Euro? Scene gave me a look over the rim of his iced tea. It was almost a warning, almost a joke. With him, it was often both. People congratulated him all evening. Professor Lang from the policy department clasped his shoulder. Uncle Dean announced, twice, that Ethan had Why Euro escaped the Bell blue-collar curse. Why Euro? Dad heard it the second time and folded his napkin into a tight rectangle. He did not correct him. He almost never corrected anyone when Mom was hosting. At 7:18 p.m., the servers cleared the salad plates. At 7:23, Mom checked the clipboard she had tucked beside the podium. At 7:25, Ethan stood for photographs near the dessert table, holding his diploma cover even though the actual diploma would be mailed later. Mom kept saying, Why Euro? One more with the donors. One more with the family. Nora, step to the side so we can see the banner. Why Euro? The banner read, Congratulations, Ethan Bell in Navy letters. I had picked it up from the print shop on my lunch break and used my employee parking pass so Mom would not have to pay the downtown meter. While everyone was posing, my phone buzzed in my purse. It was a campus payroll alert about a rejected timesheet batch, nothing urgent for me until Monday. Under the phone, the green ledger pressed against my hand. I had brought it because Mom had asked me, that afternoon, if I had Why Euro Paney scholarship paperwork lying around a Euro and then pretended she meant old tax forms. Now she stood at the podium with the toast card in her hand. Cream cardstock, same batch as the place cards. Her handwriting filled both sides. The top line said, To Ethan, who rose above every obstacle. She smiled at the room first, then her eyes landed on me. Why Nora? She said into the microphone. I think Ita Euro's time we clear up the missing scholarship problem with the people who have supported this family. Why Euro? Ethan lowered his dessert fork and looked down at his plate. Dada Euro's hand moved once toward his water glass, then stopped. I kept my fingers on the ledger coil and felt the corner of the purple tab bend under my thumb. The hierarchy was clear, printed, seated, photographed, and now spoken into a microphone. Ethan was the future. Mom was the presenter. Dad was the quiet witness. And I was supposed to be the accounting error with a chair by the service door. The first time I saw the scholarship tied to my name was 4 months before that dinner, on a Tuesday that smelled like wet coats and printer toner. It was February 6th, 8:17 in the morning. I know because I wrote the time in the top corner of my spiral ledger before I walked across the quad to Mason Hall. Campus payroll opened at 9, but the Bursar desk opened at 8. And if you wanted Tessa Rowan before the line formed, you went early. I had my student ID, my blue folder, and a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold by the time I reached the first floor lobby. Mason Hall always had the same sound in winter. Boots squeaking on tile, the card reader chirping, somebody coughing near the financial aid pamphlets. Tessa was behind the glass partition with a yellow cardigan over her chair. She was 26, maybe 27, and she had the kind of desk where nothing was decorative. 2 stamp pads, 1 clear tape dispenser, a jar of black pens chained to the counter, and a laminated sign that said, "Why Euro, please have ID ready." She looked up when I stepped to the window. "Why Euro, Nora Bell?" "Why Euro," she said, before I even slid my card through the tray. "Why Euro payroll?" Why Euro, and not today?" "Why Euro," I said. "Why I need to check something on my Spring account." "Why Euro?" She took my ID and tapped at her keyboard. "Why Euro Jua, Euro regraduating? Why Euro December? If I don't Euro T mess up statistics? Why Euro Juona, Euro T? Why Euro?" She said it like she had already seen the grades. Then her face tightened a little. Not dramatically, just enough that her eyes stopped moving. I noticed because I watched people read screens for a living. Campus payroll was half forms and half faces, waiting for somebody to realize a routing number was wrong or a timesheet had missed a supervisor's signature. Tessa clicked twice. "Why Euro woo did you receive a donor award letter in January?" "Why Euro woo?" I pulled my blue folder open on the counter. "Why Euro a maybe?" I got an email about the Lenore P. Whitcomb Student Service Award, but I thought it was preliminary. It said funds would post after confirmation. Why Euro Dodo? You have the email? I did, because I had printed it. I printed anything with a dollar amount. I slid it under the glass, 3 pages. Stapled crooked because the payroll stapler jammed if you hit it too soft. Tessa read the first page, then turned back to her screen. The email had come from scholarships at harrington.edu on January 12th at 3:42 p.m. Subject line, Whitcomb Award Notification, Service-Based Donor Restriction. It listed my student ID 884192076 and said the award was restricted to tuition, books, and required academic fees for Nora Bell, undergraduate student employee in good standing. I remember the exact wording because the word "Why Euro restricted Euro" was circled in purple in my ledger later. Tessa pushed the printout back through the tray, but kept one finger on it. "Why Euro Etheria? Euro S, a memo attached to this award in the Bursar portal. Why Euro," she said quietly. "Why Euro you hut kind of memo? Why Euro, why a donor restriction memo? It still has your ID on it. Why Euro still, why Euro?" She looked toward the open doorway behind her. Mr. Colia Euro's office was down the hall, the one with framed compliance certificates and a plant that never looked watered. The hallway was empty except for a student worker carrying a box of envelopes. Tessa lowered her voice. "Why Euro the award posted?" Then it was reversed the same day, January 19th. There at Euro S, a transfer note. Why Euro? I took the ledger out of my tote bag and uncapped my pen. Why Euro you can? I write that down. Why Euro you can? Write what I say. I canna Euro T-print internal notes without Mr. Cole. Why Euro? That was Tessa. Helpful, but careful. She never turned the monitor. She never used words she couldn't a Euro T. Defend later, I wrote. January 19th, Whitcomb Award posted and reversed same day. Ask Cole. Transfer note. Then Tessa said, "Why Euro Dodo, you have a brother on campus." "Why Euro?" My pen stopped. "Why Euro? Youthin. Why Euro?" I said. "Why Euro? Graduate Business Program. Why Euro?" She typed again. Slower this time. Why Euro Etheria Euro S? A housing deposit receipt connected to the same batch number. Why Euro you hut? Does that mean why Euro Pit means the money moved through the same daily posting file? Why Euro she swallowed. Why Euro Gia Euro M not saying where it ended up. Nora. IA Euro M saying the donor restriction memo did not change names. Your student ID is still on the memo. Why Euro? I stared at the black pen in my hand, the cheap kind with bite marks near the cap from some stranger in line before me. I wanted her to say, plainly, why Euro TDs is wrong. Why Euro? I wanted a sentence I could carry home and place on the kitchen table between MoMA Euro S coupon binder and Dada Euro S reading glasses. Instead, Tessa reached for a pink message slip and wrote in neat block letters. Cole. A. Review Whitcomb restriction. N. Bell ID attached. She dated it to 6ths and clipped it to a gray intake form. Why Euro WHO make an appointment with Mr. Cole? Why Euro? She said. Why Euro Udana Euro T? Wait until May. Why Euro? Why Euro should I call my mom? Why Euro? I asked, which was the wrong question, but it came out before I could stop it. Tessa Euro's expression changed. She knew my mother from parent volunteer events, from scholarship, brunch, sign-in tables, from the way Marcy Bell could remember donor names and room numbers and make it look effortless. Why Yai would get the documents first. Why Euro, Tessa said. That sentence is why I kept going back. I left Mason Hall at 8:46 with the ledger pressed against my coat and my coffee untouched in a trash can by the east doors. Outside, the sidewalk salt had turned to gray slush. I stood under the awning and added one more line before the ink could smear. Tessa says donor restriction memo still has my ID. Housing deposit receipt in same batch. Get documents first. At 9:03, I clocked in at payroll and processed student timesheets for other Plia Euro S jobs, while the pink message slip sat somewhere behind the Bursar glass. At 12:12, my mother texted me a photo of Ethan in a navy suit standing beside a banner that said, Why Euro Executive Leadership Fellows. Why Euro, her message said, Why Euro, big things coming for your brother. Try to be happy for him. Why Euro? I typed, I am. Why Euro, then deleted the rest. Because if I asked about the Wickham Award without proof, I already knew the answer. Mom would say I was comparing. Ethan would sigh. Dad would tell me to let the office sort it out. So I did what I knew how to do. I made a tab in my ledger, wrote Wickham in purple, and started saving every receipt, email, timestamp, and name. The purple tab held the pages from the year Ethan started college, and I kept turning to the same kind of line. Date, amount, who asked. What got said after that was the part my mother never remembered. The first one was an application fee on a Tuesday night in September. 9:17 p.m., campus bookstore computer lab, because the payroll office printer was jammed and I had an hour before closing. Ethan texted me a screenshot of a payment screen with the cursor blinking over a $45 fee for some honors housing application. Under it, he wrote, Why Euro you just put this through. Mom said it has to be tonight. Why Euro? I paid it from my debit card and saved the confirmation email. The subject line said, Why Euro, a thank you for your application payment. Why Euro, I copied the confirmation number into my spiral ledger and wrote the amount in the margin with a box around it. 2 days later, Marcy was at the church kitchen with a paper plate of deviled eggs, telling Mrs. Heller that Ethan was why Euro so disciplined about his future. Why Euro, she waved one hand like she was brushing flour off a counter and added, Why Euro Nora handled the application fee for him. Shay Euro S good with systems. Why Euro handled like I had balanced the line item for fun. The second entry was the dorm deposit. May 14th, 11:08 a.m., I was on break in the payroll office, sitting under the flickering light by the copy machine with my phone propped against a stack of forms. The housing portal had a green button that said pay deposit. It was $300. Ethan had called from the parking lot outside his summer job and said his card was maxed until Friday. Marcy was in the background saying the deadline was noon and I had to Why Euro stop making it a whole thing. Why Euro? I pressed submit. The portal froze for 6 seconds, then changed to paid. I took a screenshot, printed it when I got back to my desk, and slipped it into the back of the ledger under a clear sleeve. At dinner that weekend, Marcy told my aunt that Ethan had Why Euro cured his dorm placement early. Why Euro and Dad nodded like that, explained the whole transaction. Nobody at the table said my name. They just passed the bread basket and talked about how practical our family was with college costs. Marcy let them think the deposit came from a family account. She never corrected it. The third one was the family dinner bill, and that one still had the grease stain on the corner of the receipt. Friday, 7:46 p.m., La Serrata on Maple, where the check came in a black folder with a silver clip. There were 8 of us. Dada S card got declined twice at the hostess station, which made Marcia Euro S mouth tighten. She looked at my wallet and said, Why Euro? Just put it on yours. We Euro LL sorted out later. Why Euro? The total was $186.74 before tip. I wrote it down that night with the receipt number and the tip line. I even wrote, Why Euro promised reimbursement. Why Euro, I always wrote that part. A week later, Marcy was telling people at Sunday brunch that I had insisted on treating the family because I had a good first paycheck from campus. Why Euro, she laughed when she said it. Like IA Euro D made a sweet little gesture. Dad reached for the sugar bowl and said, Why Euro, that was generous of you, Nora. Why Euro, Ethan looked up from his eggs and did not correct anybody. So I kept the documents. The application fee, email, the housing deposit screenshot, the restaurant receipt with the signed total. I labeled each one, clipped them behind the corresponding ledger page, and wrote the way the story had been told out loud. because that was always the part that changed. The numbers stayed where I put them. The names did not. By the time I got to the Whitcomb tab, I already knew what my mother would do if she found a clean paper trail. She would touch the edge of the envelope, smile for whoever was nearby, and make the math sound like manners. At 6:11 on Tuesday night, I was still at my desk in campus payroll, staring at a stack of time cards and waiting for the copier to stop eating the top sheet. The office had gone thin and echoey the way it always did after 5, when the student workers left and the building settled into its evening noises. My phone buzzed face down beside the stapler. Marcy. She had sent a group text first. Seating chart attached. Need spelling checked before Thursday. Nora, fix donor names if needed. The attachment was a PDF with 6 tables and a neat row of black boxes along the bottom for special notes. Table 1 had the immediate family. Table 2 had faculty. Table 3 said donors and alumni. I scanned it once, then again, slower. My seat was at table 6, near the service hall, with 2 of Ethana's childhood friends and a cousin who had not spoken to me in 3 years unless she needed a ride. The chart had red marks on 3 names. Marcia Euro's handwriting in the margin. Scanned from the paper original. Whitcomb, check spelling. Renshaw, not Renshaw. Mr. Lyle prefers doctor in print. I saved the file and opened the text thread. Me, IA Euro M on my break. I can look at it after 7. Her reply came in under a minute. Marcy, it needs to be done tonight. We have enough family stuff without TYPOS. Then the phone rang. I stepped into the empty copy room so the payroll printers would not pick up my voice. Why? I just saw the chart. Why Euro? I said. Why Euro Jew want me to proof donor names? Why Euro Jize? Why Euro? Marcy said. She had that crisp, busy sound she used when other people were listening, and she wanted them to think she was managing a household, a fundraiser, and a crisis at once. Why Euro Jew know the names? You Euro VE, been around the office side of things. Why Euro? Why Euro Gia Euro M, not the one who made the chart. Why Euro? Why? I know that, Nora. Why Euro? She lowered her voice. Why I need someone with an eye for these details. Why Euro? I looked at the wall calendar taped beside the copier. Thursday had a gold star on it because Ethan was supposed to be the center of the room. The graduate, the proud son, the whole arrangement. Below the star, I had written, in pencil, Fairmont, 6:30, because I needed to remember the dinner start time and the parking garage code. Marcy kept talking. Why Euro Pulso? Dona Euro T, bring up the scholarship issue. Why Euro? I waited. The copier behind me clicked and paused. Why Euro UHUT scholarship issue? Why Euro? I asked. Why Eurotha one everyone is suddenly so interested in? Why? Eurotha gave a short laugh that meant she did not think it was funny. Why? Euro Yita Euro S Ethana Euro S night. People are coming to celebrate him. We are not doing paperwork at dinner. Why Euro? Why Euro? Athada Euro S. Not paperwork. Why Euro? I said. Why Euro YIF? You mean the donor restricted award. Thada Euro S, a compliance matter. It was never supposed to go into a housing account. Why Euro? Oh. Why Euro Nora? Why Euro? My name came out flat, like she was setting a plate down too hard. Why I am not discussing that on Thursday. Why Euro? I pressed the heel of my hand against the copy room counter and looked at the line of paper towels under the sink. Why Euro Gia Euro M only saying, if anyone asks why the ledger has one name and the housing deposit has another, I can explain it. Why Euro? Why Euro? No one is asking you to explain anything. Why Euro? She sounded annoyed now, which was usually her way of ending a topic before it got inconvenient. Why Euro Gia Euro M asking you to keep your mouth shut and help with the names. Why Euro? There it was, plain and practical. Not a misunderstanding. Not a family mix-up. She wanted the chart cleaned up and the subject buried under linen and place cards. Why Euro Gia Euro LL proof, the donor names. Why Euro? I said. Why Euro good? And Nora, why Euro Jize? Why Euro? Why Euro Dodo not make this harder for your brother? Why Euro? I almost said, he didn't a Euro T make the ledger. He didn't a Euro T sign the housing receipt. He didn't a Euro T file the donor memo. I didn't a Euro T say any of that. I opened my spiral ledger instead and wrote the call down at 6:17 p.m. date. Amount. Who asked? What was said after 6:17? Marcy Bell. Seating chart. Donor names. Do not bring up scholarship issue. Do not make it harder for Ethan. When I wrote the last line, I heard how ridiculous it was. Like the problem was my tone, not the money trail. I went back to the attachment and looked at table 3 again. One of the donor names had been corrected with a thick red slash and a new spelling squeezed above it. Marcy had also circled the note box at the bottom and written, in all caps, "Family toasts first." I printed the chart on the office laser printer, folded it once, and tucked it into the front of my folder behind the donor restriction email and the housing deposit receipt. The paper edges lined up neatly. That was the part I trusted. The rest of it, the room, the dinner, the people who would clap when Ethan stood up, all of that felt less solid than the stack in my hands. When I locked my desk drawer at 6:29, my phone buzzed again. Marcy. Also, if Adrian Cole is there, don't corner him. Just smile. I stared at that message in the hallway by the elevator, then added it to the ledger before I rode downstairs. At 6:47 p.m., I pulled into the Fermata Euro S front circle and let a valet take my keys. The hotel had put out brass stanchions and 2 banners on the sidewalk, one for the Bell family dinner and one for the alumni fund. Through the glass doors, I could already see the host stand, a white easel, and a board that read 96 guests checked in, with a column for walk-ins left blank. I kept my tote against my side as I went through the lobby. The spiral ledger was in the front pocket, along with the donor restriction email, the housing deposit receipt, and the copy of the Bursar export I had printed that afternoon. I had also brought the marked-up program proof, the one I had corrected at my desk between payroll questions. I was still annoyed that Marcy had asked me to proof donor names, then acted as if the whole evening had nothing to do with me. Inside the alumni room, the lighting was soft and expensive. Round tables were dressed in ivory linen, each one with a small vase of white roses and a folded menu card. At the far wall, there was a long donor table with place cards set in neat rows. Ethan Ayura's friends had already claimed the corner near the fireplace. I recognized 2 of them from his old high school photos, one in a navy suit and one wearing a tie loose at the collar, both laughing over their phones. Marcy spotted me before I reached the bar. She was standing by the seating chart with a clipboard tucked under one arm, her lipstick fresh and her posture perfect for anyone who only knew her from volunteer committees. "Why Euro Jua Euro re here? Why Euro?" she said. "Why Euro Jua? I need you by the service station. Why Euro?" I glanced at the chart on the easel. My name was there, written in red on the second revision sheet. Not at the family table, not even near the donor row. Nora Bell, service station. Under it, someone had added a small note, "Help with coffee and dessert." Why, I thought I was sitting with the family. "Why Euro?" I said. Marcy didn't Euro T look up from the clipboard. Why Euro W had to make practical adjustments. "You know the room layout better than anyone. Why Euro? Why I proofed the program. I can still sit with you for dinner. Why Euro? Why Euro? At that Isna, Euro T, the point, Nora. Why Euro?" It usually meant the point was public image, and my opinion had already been counted as a complication. I followed her line of sight to the sideboard. There were stacks of plated salad forks, 2 silver coffee urns, and a tray of folded toast cards with gold lettering. A server in black asked Marcy whether the reserved bottles for the donor table needed opening now or after the welcome. "Why Euro Pofter? Why Euro?" Marcy said, then turned back to me. "Why Euro you stand over by the coffee? Keep things moving and don't start a conversation about old school records with Adrian if he arrives. Why Euro?" She had managed to say that in front of a server and 2 women in pearl earrings who were studying the dessert table. I nodded once because arguing in the lobby would have given her a scene, and I was trying to keep the evening from becoming one before dinner even started. Ethan came over from the fireplace with a glass of sparkling water and one of his friends beside him. His graduation robe had been traded for a dark jacket, but the tassel from the cap was still tucked in his breast pocket like a joke he had not finished telling. "Why Euro other she is? Why Euro?" he said. "Why Euro?" he said. "Why Euro you made it? Why Euro?" His friend looked from me to the service station and smiled like he understood the arrangement without needing it explained. "Why Euro pair, you working the event, Nora? Why Euro?" he asked. "Why Euro apparently? Why Euro?" I said. Ethan gave a small shrug, the kind people use when they want to stay uninvolved while still enjoying the setup. "Why Euro Amoma Euro S, under pressure. Donors, alumni, all that. Why Euro?" I looked at the donor table instead of his face. One of the place cards had been flipped upside down, and I could see Marcia Euro's red pen marks on the seating chart behind it. She had crossed out 3 names, moved to people closer to the head table, and added a note beside Adrian Collia's seat that simply said, "Confirm." Marcy leaned in toward me and lowered her voice. "Why Euro, just smile tonight. No explanations. If anyone asks where you are, you Euro re-helping. Why Euro? Why I am helping. Why Euro?" I said. Why I just noticed IA Euro M helping at the coffee station. Why Euro? She gave me the look she used when she wanted obedience to sound like maturity. Why Eurothon? Be mature about it. Why Eurothon behind the service station and opened the front pocket long enough to touch the ledger, just to make sure it was still there. The paper edge brushed my fingers. Across the room, a server was checking the program stack near the entrance, and I saw the top copy had my corrected spelling for one of the donor names, the one Marcy had underlined in blue. I had done that work in an office chair under fluorescent lights, and now I was standing by a coffee urn with my name printed into the wrong part of the room. At 7:05, the first guests moved toward their tables, and Marcy started arranging the toast cards on the sideboard one by one, like she was lining up the evening itself. At 7:09, Marcy lifted her glass and the sideboard staff stopped moving long enough to listen. She didn't a Euro tea go to the microphone right away. She stood beside the floral arrangement closest to the head table, smiled toward the donor tables, and waited for people to turn their chairs in her direction. Why Euro a thank you all for being here for Ethan. Why Euro, she said. With that polished voice she used at school fundraisers and church breakfasts. Why Euro Ethiais is a proud night for our family. Why Euro I was 2 steps from the coffee urn, stacking saucers because the server beside me had run out of room on the tray. From there I could see the front of the room, the white roses, the gold lettering on the toast cards, and Ethan sitting straight backed at the center table like the whole layout had been built around him. Marcy kept going. Why Euro Ethan earned every bit of this. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro ha worked. He stayed focused, he carried a full course load, and he never complained when the family had to make sacrifices for tuition and housing. Why Euro? A few people nodded. Someone at table 4 gave a soft, approving laugh. Marcy touched the stem of her glass with one finger. Why Europin, any family? There are always practical matters. Paperwork, deadlines, payments. It takes discipline to keep a student on track, especially when money gets tight. Why Europin? I looked down at the stack of napkins in my hand, so I wouldn't a Europin look at her. The toast card closest to me had Why Euro Uffer Ethan, with La Via Euro printed in gold. Beneath it, in Marcia Euro S narrow blue handwriting, someone had added, Why Euro Keek. The story's simple. Why Euro? That line was tucked against the underside of the card where guests would not Euro see it. But I had seen enough volunteer binders and inventory sheets to notice notes like that. The card felt heavier in my hand after I read it. Marcy raised her glass higher. Why Euro? Some people in this family have worried too much about numbers, but tonight we are here to celebrate achievement. Why Euro? She said. Why Euro a number sa? Euro the way other people said. Why Euro noise? Why Euro noise? Why Euro? A woman from the donor table near the wall glanced over at me, then back at Marcy. I recognized her as one of the parents from the scholarship luncheon last spring. She had the same careful expression people get when they think they are witnessing a family story they are not supposed to question. Ethan smiled at the room, then at Marcy. He did not look at me. Marcy continued, Why Euro? Wow, when we think about what it takes to get here, we think about commitment. We think about long nights, good grades, and support from everyone who loves you enough to stay organized. Why Euro? But that last word landed hard, because it was the one she used when she wanted to make me sound difficult without saying my name. I set the saucers down and reached for the coffee pot. My hand was steady, but I kept checking the liquid line because I needed something to do with my eyes. The server beside me whispered, Why Euro? I need more decaf. Why Euro? Why Euro? Pin a minute. Why Euro? I said. Marcy thanked the donors by category, which was another one of her habits. Alumni, faculty, neighbors, the church ladies, the foundation couple from table to XL. She knew how to make every person in the room feel like they had helped build Ethan out of decent intentions. Then she turned slightly toward the sideboard, and for 1 second I thought she might be done. Instead, she added, Why you're a wand for the people who helped with the details at home. I know that isn't always glamorous work. It takes patience to handle someone else's confusion about bills and awards and what belongs where. Why Euro? The phrase was neat enough to pass as a thank you. It also pinned me to the room. At table 6, Ethan Ayura's roommate looked down at his plate. A man in a navy blazer cleared his throat and reached for his water. Marcy smiled as if she had only said something generous. Why Euro Jiba? We got there. Ethan got there. Why Euro? Applause started from the back, cautious at first, then fuller when a few people near the front joined in. Ethan stood with his glass, the tassel still tucked in his pocket, and gave the practiced nod he probably used in photo ops. I poured coffee for a woman in pearls who asked for cream. She lowered her voice and said, Why Euro jar mother is wonderful. Why euro? Why euro Jais? Why euro? I said, because the cup was in my hand and I needed a word to go with it. Across the room, Marcy set her glass down and glanced at the toast cards on the sideboard as if she was checking that the evening was still following her plan. Her fingers brushed one card, then another, straightening them into a line. Near the entrance, a server stepped aside to let a man in a dark coat come through with a folded paper in his hand. I couldn't a euro see his face clearly from the service station. Only the way he stopped just inside the doorway and looked toward the head table, like he was confirming a name against a list. Marcy had just reached for the microphone again when I noticed the man had a university lanyard clipped inside his coat. Ethan tipped his champagne flute toward me and grinned like we were still kids in the backyard. YIF Nora. Starts sorting the receipts now. Somebody get her a label maker. Why euro, he said. A few people at table 6 laughed. Not the loud, ugly kind. Just enough for the joke to land and stay there. I stood near the service station with my spiral ledger open in one hand and the folded donor email in the other. The page I had marked with a yellow tab showed the scholarship restriction from April 18th, 10:12 a.m., stamped from the Bursar office. Right below it, in my own handwriting, I had copied the housing charge from Ethana's account on April 19th, 8:03 a.m. The numbers were clean, the dates were cleaner. Marcy lifted the toast card from her place setting and turned it so the nearest tables could see the blue ink note on the back. Why euro Sisons? We are all looking at paper tonight. Why euro, she said, voice sweet enough to pass for polite. This card was left by someone who thought Nora was the missing scholarship problem. IA euro M, not interested in embarrassment. IA euro M, interested in answers. Why euro? I took one step forward before I thought better of it. Why euro Yita euro S, not missing. Why euro? I said. Why euro Etheria euro S. A donor restriction email. It says the award had to stay on my account. I have the ledger entries. I have the housing deposit receipt. And I can show you the portal export if anyone wants the timestamps. Why euro? That came out too fast. I heard myself doing it, stacking documents like I was in the payroll office instead of a graduation dinner with 96 people, pretending not to stare. A fork scraped a plate somewhere behind me. Marcy kept her smile in place. Why euro Nora? Nobody asked for your office voice. Why euro? Why euro Geo euro M? Trying to explain it correctly. Why euro? I said. Why IF the award moved. It was na euro T through me. The bursar can check the transfer record. The memo is in the packet. I kept everything because I knew somebody would need the paper trail. Why euro? Ethan let out a short breath through his nose. Why euro Jew? Always keep everything. Theta? Euro S. The point, you can always build some little file after the fact. Why euro? He said it loud enough for the table beside him to hear, and a woman in a silver dress looked down at her bread plate like it had developed a stain. I looked at Ethan, then at Marcy, waiting for one of them to ask the simple question. Which account? What date? Who authorized it? Instead, Marcy set the toast card down beside her water glass and said, Why euro Houston dub Nora? Tell these people you euro re sorry for what you did. Why euro? My hand tightened around the spiral binding. The ledger edge dug into my palm. Why I didn't a euro T steal scholarship money? Why euro? I said. Why I F you? Want me to apologize for having records? I won't a euro T do that. Why euro? The man in the dark coat had moved farther into the room while we were talking. He was no longer just a shape at the doorway. I could see the university lanyard hanging from the inside of his coat and the folded paper in his hand. Beside him, Tessa Rowan came in through the side corridor with a manila envelope pressed against her chest. She spotted me across the room and gave one quick nod. The kind people give when they have already checked the facts and do not want to waste time pretending otherwise. She crossed to the service station before Marcy could turn and notice her. Why euro Tessa? Why euro? I said. Why gee, Mr. Cole is here. Why, she said quietly, glancing toward the head table. Why euro ha asked for you, and he asked for the family account packet. I brought the portal export. Why euro? I looked at the envelope. The corner of a stapled sheet showed through the top, and the header line was just visible. Bursar, portal activity report. Mr. Cole stopped at the edge of the dining room, where the carpet shifted from banquet gold to the darker runner near the wall. He checked the folded paper once, then looked up at our table. Why euro Nora Bell? Why euro, he said. Why euro Gia euro M? Adrian Cole from Student Accounts. I need you, and I need Mrs. Bell, to stay right where you are. Why euro? Marcia euro S smile did not move, but her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Script section. Section text. Mr. Cole set his tan folder on the sideboard between the coffee urn and the stack of unused dessert plates. Tessa stayed a step behind him, both hands on the manila envelope like she did not want anyone to forget she had brought it in person. Marcy lifted her chin at him. Why Euro Padrian? This is a family dinner. Nora has made her point. Why Euro? He did not sit. He opened the folder and pulled out a printed report with the university seal in the corner. Why Euro TICs is a compliance issue, Mrs. Bell. It is also a donor restriction issue. I need to verify what happened before anyone says another word in this room. Why Euro? A server in a gray vest came by with a tray of coffee cups and froze near the buffet table when he saw Mr. Collier Euro's badge. The woman beside him kept wiping the same spot on a silver water pitcher. Marcy turned toward me instead of him. Why Euro Nora, stand up. I was already standing. My chair legs scraped the rug beside my plate, and every eye at the nearest tables went to the sound. Marcy kept her voice steady enough for the people around us to hear. Why Euro, you stand up and apologize to the donor couple. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro, tell them there was confusion with the scholarship money. We can all move on after that. Why Euro? The donor couple sat 2 tables over, both of them in dark jackets, the woman with her program folded in her lap. I had seen them at the Bursar office once when they came to drop off the restriction memo. They were not looking at me now. They were looking at Mr. Cole. I put my hand on the back of my chair so I would not grip the tablecloth. Why, I am not apologizing for stealing money I never touched. Why, Euro Marcia Euro's mouth tightened. Why, Euro you are making this worse. Why, Euro Mr. Cole looked from her to me and then held out one hand. Why, Euro Nora, do you have the ledger with you? Why, Euro? I reached into my bag and took out the spiral notebook. The cover was bent at one corner from carrying it in my backpack all semester. I opened it to the page with April 18th and 19th marked in blue ink and handed it over. The page had the donor restriction note I copied from Tessa Euro's email, the housing deposit time, and the line I wrote after I checked the portal at lunch. Mr. Cole did not skim. He read each line with his finger under the words, Why Euro April 18:10:12 a.m. Donor restriction memo received. Why Euro, he said out loud. Why Euro April 19:8:03 a.m. Housing deposit posted to account 4417. Why Euro? Marcy glanced at the page. Why Euro? That was a bookkeeping mix-up. Why Euro? Tessa opened the envelope and pulled out a stapled packet. Why Euro? FDI says the portal export from student accounts. It shows the award posting, the reversal request, and the housing transfer. Why Euro? Mr. Cole took the packet from her and separated the pages with his thumb. Why Euro? The scholarship was set up with a restriction for tuition, books, and fees only. It was not eligible for housing. Why Euro? Why I know that. Why Euro? I said before I could stop myself. Why Euro? Athatis. Why I wrote the memo in the ledger. I called the Bursar desk when I saw the first posting. I sent the donor email to payroll because I thought someone needed the paper trail. Why Euro? My voice came out too fast like I was in my cubicle and late for timesheets. I heard it and made myself stop. There was no use adding 3 more sentences just because I wanted my mother to understand the file. Mr. Cole slid one page to the top. Why Euro? The transfer request attached to the housing deposit is dated April 19th at 8:03 a.m. It came through the parent finance portal. Why Euro? Marcia Euro's fingers found the stem of her glass again. She did not lift it. Why Euro? Ojas login was used. Why Euro? I asked. Why Euro? Tessa pulled the audit line. Why Euro? He said. He looked at her. She nodded once and pointed to the bottom of the export. Marcy reached for the paper, but he kept it just out of her hand. Why Euro? The request was submitted under the Bell family contact number ending in 1182. Why Euro? That was her office line. The one printed on the volunteer sheets she handed out at school events. The one she told people to call if they wanted to help Ethan with anything from cap and gown pickup to apartment deposits. I looked at her and then at Ethan. He had stopped smiling. He was still holding the toast card from earlier, the one that said I was the missing scholarship problem, like it had become a party favor instead of a problem he needed to answer for. Marcia Euro's voice was lower now. Why Euro W? We're going to replace it before the bursar noticed. Why Euro? Kuth. What? Why Euro Uith? What? Why Euro? I said. Why Euro jar goodwill? Why Euro? She flinched at that, but only for a second. Then she did what she always did when the room was watching. She pulled herself straight again. Why Euro pit was temporary. Why Euro? She said. Why Euro Euthan needed housing. We were under pressure. Nora has a job. Nora understands paperwork. This could have stayed inside the family. Why euro? Why euro? No. Why euro? I said. I set my ledger down on the white linen in front of me. Why euro pit could have stayed inside the family if you had asked me. You did not ask. You took the award, moved it into Ethana Euro's housing account, and then told me to keep quiet when I asked about the email. Why euro? Mr. Cole placed the portal export on top of the ledger. YG Mrs. Bell. If you want the university to treat this as an error, I need the authorization that moved restricted donor funds. If you do not have it, then we are done calling it a mix-up. Why euro? Marcy looked past him, toward the donor couple, toward the other tables, toward anyone but me. Why euro, Nora? Just say you, euro re, sorry. Why euro? I shook my head once. Why I am not covering this up so Ethan can keep his apartment and your volunteer friends can keep clapping for the Bell family. Why euro? Mr. Cole lifted the top page again and his eyes stopped on the signature line. Why euro Tethon? I need to ask who signed the parent authorization at 8:03. Mr. Cole did not look up when he asked the question. He kept his glasses low on his nose and held the tan folder open with both hands, like he was checking a balance sheet in his office instead of standing beside a linen-covered banquet table at the Fairmont. Why euro the parent authorization at 8:03? Why euro, he said. Why euro Poe signed it. Why euro? Marcy reached for her water glass, stopped, and set her hand flat on the table instead. Ethan stared at the toast card in his lap, the one that called me the missing scholarship problem, like it had suddenly become a bad prop. Tessa stood near the service doorway with the stapled export packet tucked against her chest. She had that careful clerk posture she gets at the Bursar desk. Shoulders squared, eyes moving from face to face as if she was waiting for someone to ask her the exact right question. I looked at the ledger in Mr. Colia Euro's folder. My handwriting was still there in the margins, pages marked with the dates I had copied from the portal when I started double-checking my own aid package. I could see the line I had circled twice in blue pen. The April 18th donor restriction memo, timestamped 10:12 a.m. Then I looked at my mother. She had the same smile she used at parent volunteer luncheons. The one that made other people think she was calm and generous and a little tired from helping everyone else. Up close, I could see her fingers pressing into the stem of the water glass hard enough to whiten her knuckles. Why euro Mercy Bell? Why euro, Mr. Cole said, and the formal version of her name made my Aunt Dana glance up from the far side of the room. Why? I need your answer. Why euro? For a second, no one moved. Then Marcy gave a short laugh that didn't a euro tea reach her face. Why euro Padrion? This is a family dinner. We can clear up any confusion privately. Why euro? Why euro Athet isna euro tea? How compliance works. Why euro? He turned one page in the tan folder. Why euro? The donor restriction memo says tuition, books, and fees only. No housing transfer. No room, no board, no cash equivalent. I wanted to let that land and stay there. Instead, my mouth got ahead of me the way it always does when I am trying to keep bad paper from becoming a bigger lie. Why euro YIF? Anyone wants the full paper trail? Comment ledger right now. Why euro? I said, keeping my voice level. Keep watching, because the next entry explains why my award disappeared from my account. Why euro Gia euro M, the one who kept the dates. IA euro M, the one who went back to the bursar desk and matched the entries. Why euro? Oh, a few guests shifted in their chairs. Someone at the far table lowered a fork onto a dessert plate. My cousin had his phone halfway up before his mother smacked his wrist. Mr. Cole slid a sheet across the table and tapped the top line with one finger. Why euro the parent portal login used the Bell family contact number ending in 1182. The authorization was submitted from that account. The housing deposit posted to account 4,417 8 minutes later. Why euro Marcy blinked once. Why euro ATHAP portal is for family use. Ethan needed a place to live. Why euro? Tessa took one step forward. Why euro the award letter I pulled from compliance has a restriction paragraph on page 2. I stapled it to the export packet. It was signed by the donor office before any transfer was allowed. Why euro? Mr. Cole pulled that exact page from the tan folder and turned it toward the table. He read it out loud, slow enough that even the people at the dessert station could hear him. Why euro funds may be applied to tuition, required books, and mandatory fees. Any housing request requires written approval from the scholarship office and donor compliance. No such approval appears in this ledger. Why euro? Ethan finally looked at me. His face had gone a shade lighter than it had during the speeches. Why euro Nora Idina euro T? No, they moved it like that. Why euro? Why euro no? Why euro, I said. Why euro you knew enough to enjoy the apartment? Why euro? That came out flatter than I expected, but I didn't a euro t take it back. Marcy sat straighter in her chair. Why euro you are making this sound ugly on purpose? Why euro gia euro m reading dates? Why euro, I said. Why euro gate 10 in the morning? Your portal, 8:03. The housing transfer, April 18th. The donor memo, April 19th. The deposit. That is the sequence. Why euro? Mr. Cole closed the folder partway, then opened it again, like he wanted to be sure of the signature line before he named it in front of the donors. YG, Mrs. Bell. Why, he said. Why the authorization is tied to your contact number. I need to know whether you entered the request or gave someone else access. Why, euro. Marcia. Euro's eyes flicked to the floral centerpiece, then to Ethan, then back to me. She was already choosing which version of the story would cost her the least. And that was the first time that evening I stopped waiting for her to choose me. Mr. Cole held his hand out for the ledger, and I slid it across the linen-covered service cart. The bottle of sparkling water rattled when the notebook bumped it. Tessa had set a small office printer beside the dessert plates, and the paper coming out of it still curled at the corners. She tapped the top sheet. Why Euro Portal Export Bursar side, printed at 7:41. I kept one finger on page 8 of my spiral ledger while Mr. Cole read the first line. My handwriting was in the margin, with the date boxed 3 times because I had gone back to it after work. Why Euro Julie 3, he said. Why Euro Scholarship Credit posted to Nora Bell. Student account 8732. Why Euro? He looked up at me, then down again. Why Euro Thin? At 8:03 a.m. A parent authorization email comes in from Marcy Bell. Contact number ending in 1182. Subject line, scholarship placement. Why euro? Marcy was standing 2 steps away from the banquet bar, one hand wrapped around a stemmed glass she was not drinking from. She was staring at the printer like it had insulted her. Mr. Cole turned the page Tessa had clipped behind the export. Why euro text of the email says, Why euro, please apply Nora Bella Euro S donor award to Ethan Bella Euro S housing balance. Account 4,417. He needs the residence charge cleared by Friday. Why euro, why euro? A few people at the nearest donor table had stopped cutting into their dessert. One woman with a pearl pin set her fork down and just looked from Mr. Cole to Marcy. I had the page open in my ledger already, because I had copied the dates when I saw the draft balance vanish from my Bursar screen 2 summers ago, and went back the next morning to ask why. My pen had left a dark line under the number. Why euro page 112. Why euro, I said, and heard how sharp my own voice sounded. I cleared my throat and pointed. Why euro at that award is mine. It hits my account first, then the transfer shows up under housing, same amount, same day. Why euro? Tessa leaned over the printout and tapped with her nail. Why euro 8:11 a.m. Transfer posted to account 4,417. 8:12. Nora Bella Euro S scholarship line reduced to 0. Why euro? Mr. Collier. Euro's eyes moved across the columns, date by date. He was not doing the slow, polite version anymore. He was reading it like a billing problem that had finally grown teeth. Why Europo approved the release. Why euro, he asked. Tessa flipped one more sheet. Why euro no staff approval listed. The note field says, why euro per parent request. Move surplus to family housing. Why euro, why euro. Why euro surplus. Why euro, I repeated. The word came out flat. Why euro other was never a surplus. The memo said, tuition, books, and fees only. Why euro? Marcy set her glass down hard enough to clink against the table. Why I was trying to keep Ethan enrolled. Why euro, she said. Why euro that housing charge was coming due, and Nora had money sitting there that wasna euro T being used. Why euro pit was restricted. Why euro, Mr. Cole said. Marcy pressed her lips together. Why euro pit was family money. Why euro pit was a donor award. Why euro, he said, and slid the export closer to her. Why euro thought donor restriction memo was in the file. Your email asked for the award to be applied to account 4,417. That account belongs to Ethan Bella, Euro S housing ledger. Ethan took one step back from the table, like he could make himself smaller by moving into the shadow of the floral arrangement. He stared at the printout instead of at me. Why I didn't a Euro T ask her to do this? Why euro, he said. Nobody answered him right away. The printer gave a short mechanical click and spit out the last page. Tessa reached for it, checked the header, and handed it to Mr. Cole without a word. He read the line at the top, then looked at Marcy again. Why Eurojar message was sent from the Bell family contact address. The authorization was accepted because your contact number was already tied to the parent portal. That is not the same thing as staff permission. Why Euro? Marcia. Euro's mouth tightened, and for 1 second I thought she was going to say she had only been helping me manage my accounts, the way she always said she helped with forms. Forms. Instead, she looked at the printed email and said, very quietly, I didn't a Euro T think they would trace it this far. Why Euro? That was the first honest sentence she had said all night. I closed my ledger and kept my hand on it. Why Euro Jew did not move an extra scholarship into Ethana Euro's housing account by accident. Why Euro, I said. Why Euro Jew used my award to clear his bill and left me to explain the missing line. Why Euro? Mr. Cole turned the page over, and on the back was the reply chain. He read the first line, then stopped and lifted his eyes to Marcy. The reply was hers. It said, in her own email, why Euro Popline Nora Bella Euro S award to Ethan Bella Euro S housing account. He can sort it out later. Why Euro? Mr. Cole took the phone back and read the screen twice, his thumb resting on the edge like he was trying not to touch the wrong thing. We had drifted out of the main dining room and into the narrow service hall beside the Fairmont Ballroom. A linen cart was parked under a brass sconce, and I could still hear forks scraping plates through the double doors. He looked up at Ethan first. Why Euro Jew said you thought it was family money. Why Euro? Ethan gave a short laugh that did not fit the hallway. Why Euro Pebecas Thada Euro S? What Mom told me. I thought she was moving money around for the house. I didn't at Euro T know there was some special restriction on it. Why Euro? Tessa stood across from us with her clipboard pressed to her chest. She had already printed the memo from the Bursar portal, and the top corner was bent from where she had folded it into her bag. She slid it out again and handed it to Mr. Cole. Why Euro other is a restriction. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro Yida Euro S on the donor notice. And I sent the warning at 8:03 a.m. He replied to it. Mr. Cole turned the page toward the light. The memo had the Denora Euro S name at the top, then the words restricted award in bold beside the award code. Under that, in plain text, it said funds could not be redirected to housing, meal plans, or family accounts. The body of the email was timestamped 8:03 a.m. and forwarded from the Bell family contact address ending in 1182. He tapped the reply line with his pen. Why Euro this one here? Why Euro? Tessa nodded. Why Euro G 8:16 a.m. from Ethana. Euro S University email. Why Euro? I watched Ethana Euro S face change when Mr. Cole read it aloud. Why IF the award is locked. Can you move it to housing anyway? We need the July payment cleared before move-in. He tried to speak over the last few words. Why Euro Athada Euro S? Not what I meant. I was asking about a family transfer. Why Euro Jew asked if it could be moved. Why Euro Mr. Cole said. Why Euro Athat means you knew it wasna Euro T ordinary spending money. Why Euro Marcy stepped in fast, her smile tight enough to crease the corners of her mouth. She had been holding her phone the whole time, thumb hovering over the screen like she could delete the last 10 minutes if she moved quickly enough. Why Euro Nora, please. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro, she said, blown out of proportion. Just tell them there was a misunderstanding. We can sort it out after dinner. Why Euro? She made it sound like we were discussing a seating chart, not a restricted scholarship. Mr. Cole opened the Bursar export and flipped to the housing line. Why Euro that transfer hit account 4,417 at 8:11 a.m. The source on the receipt is the Bell family portal. Saved payment method, card ending in 1182. That matches the parent contact address and the reply chain. He looked at Marcy then. Not me. Why Euro UDD you authorized the transfer from the donor award. Why Euro Marcia Euro S hand tightened around her phone. Why? I was trying to keep Ethan from getting penalized. The housing office sends fees all the time. I assumed Nora Euro S award had room in it. Why Euro? My ledger was still in my hand. The spiral bent from being opened and shut all evening. I turned it one page and pointed at the line I had written on July 3rd at 7:55 a.m. before I ever left for work. Scholarship credited. Donor restriction noted. Do not touch. Why Euro at that note was mine. Why Euro I said. Why I wrote it when the payroll office posted the award. Why Euro? Ethan looked down at the page and then away from it. He did not deny seeing the memo again. He just pressed his jaw into a line and stared at the hallway carpet, the one with the gold Fairmont pattern running down the middle. Mr. Cole reached into his jacket and pulled out a small yellow compliance form. He laid it on top of the printed memo and the portal export. Why, I need copies of all of this for donor compliance. And I need everyone in the reply chain to stay available. Why, Euro. From inside the ballroom, somebody laughed out a toast. Glasses clinked. On the edge of the dessert table, the card that had been calling me the missing scholarship problem was still lying beside the flowers, half hidden by a folded napkin. Marcy followed my eyes and reached toward my sleeve. Why Euro, Nora? Why Euro, she said in a lower voice, the one she used when she wanted me to make things easier. Why Euro cocoon with me for 1 minute? Dona Euro T. Do this in front of everyone. Why Euro? I stepped back before she could touch me. Why Euro? No. Why Euro? I said. Why Euro Gia Euro M not covering for Ethan? And IA Euro M not explaining your transfer for you? Why Euro M? The service hallway behind the Fairmont dining room was too bright for the hour. A row of ceiling LEDs buzzed over a cart of folded linen and a stack of ice buckets waiting for dessert service. I had the spiral ledger in one hand, the donor restriction memo folded into quarters in the other, and the compliance packet Mr. Cole had just started reading tucked against my ribs. Marcy shut the fire door halfway, so the noise from the alumni room came through as a dull shimmer of voices and silverware. She kept her smile on for anyone who might pass, then dropped it the second she looked at me. Why Euro you are humiliating this family? Why Euro, she said. Why Euro Dodo, you understand that. Why Euro? I looked at the toast card still pinched between her fingers. The words missing scholarship problem were half bent from where she had gripped it too hard. A waiter pushed a cart past us, and both of us stepped closer to the wall to let him through. Nobody in the hallway looked at us for more than a second. Why, I understand you wanted this handled inside the family. Why Euro, I said. Why, I wanted it fixed quietly too. Why Euro, Marcia. Euro's mouth tightened. Why Eurothon? Why are you standing here with paperwork like you Euro remaking a case against your own brother? Why Euro Quebec? But it is a case. Why Euro, I said, keeping my voice down even though my hands were shaking around the ledger. Why Euro Pit was a donor-restricted award. Tessa showed me the memo at 2:10 this afternoon. The restriction was in writing before the transfer. I walked the ledger to Mr. Cole because I wanted the account corrected before anybody announced a toast to it. Why Euro? She reached for the ledger. I stepped back and kept it against my chest. Why Euro Jew could have called me. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro Jew could have come to me before the room was full. Why Euro yeah, I did come to you. Why Euro, I said. Why Euro oat the table. Then you handed me that card and asked me to stand up and apologize for stealing money I never touched. Why Euro? Her eyes flicked toward the dining room doors. Another burst of applause rolled through the wood paneling. Someone inside was probably standing to speak. I checked the digital clock on the wall above the ice machine. 7:18 p.m. Marcy lowered her voice until it was almost flat. Why Euro Dodo? You know what happens if donors hear this? Do you know what happens to a family after a scene like this? Why Euro do what happens? Why Euro? I said. Someone looks at the invoice, the housing deposit receipt, and the portal export. Then they see the transfer went to account 4,417 at 8:11 this morning. Then they see Ethan replied to the restriction email at 8:16. She stared at me. I reached into the pocket of my dress and pulled out the printed page Tessa had given me. The top corner was bent from where I had folded it and unfolded it too many times. The donor memo still showed the line about housing, meal plans, and family accounts not being allowed. Under it, the receipt number from the Bell family portal sat beside card, ending in 1182. I did not write those timestamps. Why Euro? I said. Why? I did not move that money. I kept the note I made on July 3rd because I knew somebody would try to tell me I remembered it wrong later. Why Euro? Marcia? Euro's chin lifted. It was the same look she used at school fundraisers when somebody challenged a raffle total. Why Euro you are making a private mistake public. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro, yeah, I tried private. Why Euro, I said. Why I brought it to the Bursar. I brought the memo. I brought the ledger. You brought a toast card to a room with 96 guests. Why Euro? The fire door opened a few inches farther behind her, and Mr. Cole stepped into the hall with the compliance packet in one hand and a pen tucked into the front of his shirt pocket. He had the kind of face that stayed calm while other people ran hot. Tessa was just behind him, carrying a stapled export and a second copy of the donor memo. He looked from Marcy to me, then at the card in her hand. YG Ms. Bell. Why, he said to Marcy, Why I need the original portal receipt, the name on the card used for the housing transfer, and whether anyone from your household replied from a university email address before. Why this morning? Why? Marcy drew in a quick breath through her nose. Why Europadrian? This is family business. Why Euro? Mr. Cole slid the compliance packet under his arm and checked the top page again. Why Europit became university business at 8:11 a.m. He turned slightly toward me. Why Euro Nora? Come with me into conference B. Bring the ledger and the July 3rd note. Tessa, stay with the hallway. I want the export ready on the table when I call donor compliance. Why Euro? Marcy looked at the fire door, then at me, then at the page in her own hand like she was deciding whether to crumple it or save it. I tightened my grip on the ledger and followed Mr. Cole toward the side conference room, leaving her in the hallway with the toast card and the answer she had been trying to hide. Conference B had a long table, 3 rolling chairs, and a wall clock that read 7:22 p.m. Tessa came in behind us with her laptop open and a thin stack of printouts tucked under her arm. Mr. Cole shut the door, then set the dining receipt, my ledger, and the housing transfer export in a line beside a yellow legal pad. Why Euro Aletta? Euro S, keep this to the record. Why Euro, he said. He slid the top page toward me first. It was the Bursar portal export. 6 lines of text with dates, amounts, and 1 transfer code. I knew by heart because I had written it down in July. The donor restriction email sat underneath it, with the subject line still visible. Restricted scholarship funds, tuition and fees only, no housing, no meal plan, no personal reimbursements. Tessa pointed at the line item on her screen. Why Euro Hair? July 3rd at 8:16 a.m., the office replied to Ethan Bell from the student email on file. It shows a housing transfer request attached to the award balance. Why Euro? Mr. Cole looked up. Why Euro? A that reply was sent the same morning the award posted. Why Euro? I kept my hands on the ledger. The spiral coils were bent from how often I had opened it, and the July 3rd page was folded flat from my thumb. I showed him the note I had made in blue ink, then the receipt I had printed from the portal the next day. The card ending in 1182 was on the receipt, but the pay line was what made my throat tighten. Bell Family Housing Deposit, referenced through Ethan Bella, Euro S account. Mr. Cole read it twice, then he opened the legal pad and wrote at the top, donor reporting freeze. Why Euro defective immediately? Why Euro, he said. Why Euro, no report on this scholarship goes out to the foundation until my office finishes a repayment review. Tessa, flag the award in the portal. No completion status, no alumni language, no recognition note. Why Euro? Tessa clicked through 2 screens and nodded once. Why Euro? Yeah, I can lock the reporting field now. Why Euro? He turned the alumni packet over. Ethan's name was printed on the cover in clean navy type, with a photo placeholder and a paragraph about academic merit and service hours. Mr. Cole took a black pen from his shirt pocket and drew a single line through Ethan Euro's bio. Then he pulled the packet set out of the folder and placed it in a separate tray marked hold. YG Mr. Bell will not be in the recognition packet while this is under review. YG said, why Euro Yeef, the funds were redirected from a restricted award. That changes what this office can certify. Why Euro? I watched the pen line settle across Ethana Euro's name. It was a small stroke, but it carried more weight than the toast card Marcy had waved around in the hallway. Mr. Cole picked up the phone on the conference table and pressed speaker. Why Euro O'Donnell compliance? This is Adrian Cole. I need an immediate hold placed on scholarship reporting for the Bell Award. I have a restricted memo, a portal export, and a housing transfer tied to the same account. Yes, I am emailing the packet now. Why Euro? He glanced at Tessa. She was already on the campus portal, her fingers moving fast, bringing up the memo log and the transfer history. The printer in the corner started warming up. I tried to keep my voice steady. Why I kept the ledger? Because payroll taught me to keep copies. I wasn't a Euro-T hiding anything. I just wanted the account numbers in one place. Why Euro? Mr. Cole looked at me over the edge of his glasses. Why Euro at that is the right habit. Ms. Bell. Why Euro? My phone buzzed twice on the table. Marcia Euro's name lit the screen, then went dark again. Another text came in right after it, but I didn't a Euro-T pick it up. Tessa handed Mr. Cole a fresh printout. Why Euro thought donor memo is in the packet now, and the housing deposit receipt matches the card trace. Why Euro? He signed the bottom of the freeze notice, then tore off the carbon copy and slid it across to me. Why Euro Keek? That, if anyone asks why the award was paused tonight, show them this page first. Why Euro? Outside the conference room door. I heard heels in the hallway and then Marcia Euro-S voice. Low and fast, asking someone at the desk where Conference B was. Marcy got the Conference B door open with one hand and a bright smile she used on fundraising committees. Why, I was told there was confusion. Why Euro, she said, stepping halfway into the doorway. Her eyes went straight to the carbon copy in my hand. Why Euro, Nora? Give me that and come back to the dinner. People are waiting. Why Euro? Mr. Cole did not move from the table. The speakerphone on the center of the conference table was still lit, and the woman on the donor compliance line kept talking in a measured voice about documentation, retention, and award restrictions. Tessa had a legal pad on her knees and a stack of fresh prints beside her. She looked up once, then went back to marking page corners with small tabs. Why Euro Yida Euro S? Not confusion. Why Euro, Mr. Cole said. Why Euro Yida Euro S? A record review. Why Euro, Marcia? Euro S, smile tightened. Why Euro Yida smile tightened. Why Euro Pit became a university matter when the donor restriction email and the housing transfer hit the portal. Why Euro, he said. He slid one of the pages toward her without letting go of it. Why Euro, you can wait in the hall. Why Euro, she took a step in anyway. Why Euro, Nora Euro S upset, because Shay Euro S been under pressure. I can explain the scholarship mix-up to the donors. Why Euro, no, why Euro, I said before I could think about it. Why Euro, Jucana, Euro T, explain a ledger you never opened. Why Euro, that got her attention. Marcy looked at me the way she did when I interrupted one of her volunteer meetings, like I had brought mud onto clean carpet. Her hand stayed near the doorframe, close enough to grab the edge of my paper if I held it too loose. On the speaker, the donor liaison said, why Euro W need copies of the full packet, please. The restriction page, the ledger excerpt, and the housing receipt. If this was misallocated, we want the paper trail before anything else is discussed publicly. Why Euro? Tessa reached for the printer tray. Why I already marked them. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro O'Donnell memo. July 3rd ledger entry. Housing deposit receipt. Portal export. She'll set the pages into a neat stack and clip the top with a black binder clip. I could see my own spiral notebook page in the middle, the one where I had written the date and the note about the transfer request. There was no drama in it. Just ink, a timestamp, and a line item. From the hallway, somebody called, YG Mr. Cole. The Hales are asking if they should stay for the rest of the program. Why Euro? He answered without raising his voice. Why Euro? Tell them IA Euro M. Bringing them a document set in 2 minutes. Why Euro? Marcy turned toward the sound. Why Euro? The program can continue. Ethan is still supposed to do his toast. Why Euro? Why Euro Anot with a live compliance review open. Why Euro? Mr. Cole said. That was when she made for the microphone. The alumni room was only a few doors down, and the corridor opened right into the back of the stage area. I followed Mr. Cole and Tessa out because I wanted to see who was holding the mic before my mother got to it. The dinner room still had 96 place settings on the tables, but half the guests had stopped eating and turned toward the podium. A server stood with a coffee pot frozen over one white cloth. The bouquet arrangement at the head table looked too tall for the room, like it was trying to block the view. The MC had one hand on the mic stand. Marcy had the other. Why Euro Yai just need 30 seconds. Why Euro, she said. Why Euro W can clear this up. Why Euro? The MC glanced at Mr. Cole, then at the donor couple standing near the side wall with their programs folded in half. One of them, Mrs. Hale, held out her hand as soon as she saw the packet. Why Euro JOY Euro D like copies? Why Euro, she said. Why IF the award was restricted. We need to know exactly what was filed and when. Why Euro? Mr. Cole handed her the top sheet first. Why Euro Athada? Euro S the donor restriction email. The portal export is behind it. The housing deposit receipt is stapled to the back. Why Euro? Mrs. Hale read the subject line and then looked at me. Not unkindly, just direct. Why Euro? Theus says tuition only. Why Euro Pit did. Why Euro? I said. My mouth felt dry, but the words were clean. Why Euro? The transfer went into housing. Why Euro? Marcy let go of the mic stand. She was still smiling, but now it looked pasted on. Why Euro Athada Euro S? An internal correction. Why Euro? She said. Why Euro W Dona Euro T? Need to turn a bookkeeping error into a scene. Why Euro? Mr. Cole reached over and pressed the mute switch on the podium microphone. The click was small, but every head near the stage noticed it. Why NO1 is correcting this by asking Nora to absorb it. Why Eura? He said. Why Euro wand? No one is reclaiming a microphone until the paper set is reviewed. Why Euro? Marcy looked from the mute light to me and back to the packet in Mrs. Halia Euro's hands. I could see the calculation on her face. She was deciding whether to keep arguing in front of the donors or wait until we were alone and call it loyalty. I folded the carbon copy once and tucked it into my clutch. Why IFU? Want to talk to me? Why Euro? I said to her, keeping my voice level. Why Euro? Dodo it after you read the pages. Why Euro? She pressed her lips together and gave a short laugh that did not sound amused. Why Euro? Ufine. But don't a Euro tea embarrass your brother tonight. Why Euro? I looked at the ledger copy in Mrs. Halia Euro's hands, then at the closed mic, then back at Marcy. Why Euro GA Euro M? Not covering for him with my silence. Why Euro? I said. I got to my car by cutting through the side lot behind the Fairmont, past a row of hedges and a delivery door that smelled like fryer oil and wet cardboard. The valet stand was still lit up. A guy in a red vest looked at my face once and then looked back at the keys in his hand, which was the kindest thing anyone had done for me all night. Inside the Corolla, the dashboard clock read 9:18 p.m. I left the engine off for a minute and just held the spiral ledger in my lap. The cover was bent now, and one corner had gone soft from being opened and closed so many times. I flipped to the page Mr. Cole had marked with the yellow tab. My handwriting sat in the left margin, neat and cramped, next to the donor restriction note and the housing charge line from the portal export. The number was still the same. That was the part that kept bothering me. Numbers did not blur when people got loud. They did not care that my mother had asked me to apologize in front of a room full of donors. They did not care that Ethan had stood there in a black graduation gown while everyone looked at me like I was the one who had made a mess of his life. I opened the envelope Tessa had handed me at the Bursar window before dinner. It had my name typed across the front in block letters. Inside were the copies Mr. Cole approved, clipped together with a square silver staple. The donor restriction email was on top, dated 8:11 a.m. the day the award posted. Under it was the housing deposit receipt, then the portal export with the transfer line highlighted in yellow. I read the transfer line again. Why Euro applied to housing account ending 4412. That was Ethana Euro's account, not mine. His dorm had been off-campus housing after sophomore year. The apartment with the nice lease terms my parents kept bragging about at family dinners. I had seen the monthly statements once when I was helping my dad sort papers on the kitchen table, and the last 4 digits had stuck in my head because I had memorized so many account numbers for payroll. My phone buzzed against the cup holder. Mom. I let it ring out, then watched the screen go dark. It lit again 2 seconds later with a voicemail notification. I pressed play. Why Euro Nora? Listen to me. Why Euro? Marcy said, her voice tight and quick, like she was speaking through a smile she did not want anyone else to see drop. Why Euro Jew need to come back inside? Mr. Cole is making this bigger than it has to be. Just tell them there was a misunderstanding with the paperwork and we can fix it after. Ethan Euro's dinner is still going on. People are waiting. Why Euro? She paused and I heard clinking glass behind her. Somebody was still in the room, still pretending the evening could be saved with enough polite noise. Why Euro? Jar brother worked hard for tonight. Why Euro? She said. Why Euro? Udana Euro T. Make him pay for a mistake that was clearly administrative. Why Euro? The voicemail ended. I set the phone face down on the passenger seat and looked at the ledger again. Administrative. That was the word she had chosen. Not theft, not lie. Not why Euro W moved Nora Euro's scholarship money without telling her. Why Euro administrative sounded tidy. It sounded like a missing invoice, a typo, a thing that could be filed behind a divider and ignored. I found the page in my ledger where I had written the first discrepancy 2 years earlier. April 14th, 2022. Scholarship posting split, ask Bursar about restriction. Next to it, I had drawn a little box around the word restriction 3 times because I was afraid I had misunderstood it. There were 6 more entries after that. Every one of them had a date, a time, and a note about who I had spoken to. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Tessa. YG Mr. Cole says Dona T, let anyone talk you into leaving the originals behind. He Euro pulling the archived audit log Monday at 9 o'clock. Also, Mrs. Hale wants copies for her records. Why Euro? I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Monday at 9 o'clock meant an office, a scanner, and a room that smelled like toner instead of steaks and floral centerpieces. It also meant there was another set of eyes besides mine and Tessa Euro on the account history. That helped. It did not fix the heat still crawling up my neck from the look Marcy had given me when she told me not to embarrass Ethan. I tucked the ledger back into the envelope with the copies and slid both into my tote bag, under the payroll folder I had brought from work without meaning to. My hands were steady enough now to zip it shut. Through the windshield, I could see the glow from the ballroom windows and the faint outline of people moving behind the curtains. A server pushed through the side door with a tray of empty champagne flutes. Somewhere inside, Ethan was still expected to smile and accept congratulations. I put the key in the ignition and let the dashboard light wash over the page one more time before the bag swallowed it up. If my mother wanted silence, she was going to have to pay for it herself. I did not go back into the alumni room. I drove out of the Fairmont side lot at 9:27 p.m., slow enough that the gate arm had to blink twice before it lifted. My hand smelled like old paper and the lemon wipe from the dashboard. At the first red light on Mason Street, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. Ethan. I let it ring until it stopped. Then a text came in. Can you please stop making this about you? Mom is crying in the hallway. I stared at the word please longer than I should have. There was no apology in it. No question about the ledger. No. Are you okay after being asked to stand up in front of 96 people and confess to theft? Just a hallway, a crying mother, and a request that I shrink the facts down to fit inside his dinner. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour pharmacy at 9:36 p.m. The big blue sign hummed above the entrance. I kept the folder tucked under my arm like someone might snatch it between the Corolla and the automatic doors. Inside, the place smelled like floor cleaner and cheap perfume. A man in paint-splattered jeans was buying cough drops at the front register. I walked past him to the photo counter, where a self-service copier sat beside a rack of passport photo examples. The screen asked for a payment card. I fed in my debit card, then opened the folder on the little plastic shelf. I made 3 copies of the donor restriction email first. The machine glass caught every crease and staple mark. Then I copied the housing deposit receipt, the portal export, and the 2 ledger pages where my handwriting matched the dates. On the receipt copy, the transfer line came out faint, so I adjusted the darkness setting and copied it again. Applied to housing account ending 4412 appeared in heavier ink the second time. That was the kind of sentence people tried to talk around. A person could dress nicely, cry in a hallway, say family comes first, or call something administrative. The line still sat there on the page. At 9:51 p.m., I bought a pack of 9x12 envelopes, a black Sharpie, and a small box of binder clips. The receipt printed with the pharmacy name, date, and last 4 digits of my card. I folded that receipt into the back of my spiral ledger because by then I had learned to keep proof of proof. In the Corolla, I divided everything under the weak dome light. 1 envelope for Mr. Cole, marked Originals. Do not separate. 1 envelope for Mrs. Hale, marked Copies for Donor Inquiry. 1 envelope for me, marked Working File. I hesitated before writing the last label. For years, being the person with the file had made me look fussy. At family dinners, if someone said they had paid me back, I remembered whether it was cash, Venmo, or a check with a memo line. If Dad claimed he told me about a plan, I could usually find the text. Marcy used to laugh and say, "Why Euro Nora keeps receipts for breathing." Why Euro? Everyone laughed with her because it sounded harmless. It was less harmless when my records made dinner uncomfortable. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my father. "Nora, come home after you cool off. Do not send anything to outsiders tonight. We can discuss as a family." I read it twice. Outsiders meant the Bursar. Outsiders meant the donor whose restricted award had been moved. Outsiders meant anyone who could read a ledger without caring whether Ethan looked embarrassed. I typed, "I am preserving the documents for Mr. Cole Monday at 9 o'clock. Please do not contact me tonight about changing or withholding records." I did not send it right away. My thumb hovered over the blue arrow while a delivery truck idled 2 rows away. Part of me still wanted to write another paragraph. I wanted to explain donor restrictions, housing deposits, payroll timing, everything I had already said at the dinner while people stared at their salad plates. Then I deleted the extra sentences I had started adding underneath. I sent only the 2 lines. At 10:08 p.m., Tessa called. "Why Euro pair you driving?" "Why?" she asked. "Why Euro parked? Why Euro? Why Euro Geo good?" Mr. Cole said if anyone asks you to hand over originals, Dona Euro T, bring them directly to the office. He, Euro S, going to log them in with chain of custody. Why Euro chain of custody sounds dramatic. Why Euro pit sounds boring. Why Euro, Tessa said. Why Euro ubbering is good. Boring keeps people from saying pages appeared out of nowhere. Why Euro? I looked at the 3 envelopes on the passenger seat. The binder clips were blue, red, and silver. The red one held the copies for Mrs. Hale. Why Euro Dodo, you think I look cold? Why Euro? I asked before I could stop myself. Tessa paused. I heard a drawer close on her end. Why Euro Quebec? 'Cause you copied paper at a pharmacy instead of going back to be yelled at. Why Euro? Why Euro Quebec? 'Cause I keep turning people into dates and amounts. Why Euro? Why Euro? No. Why Euro? She said. Why Euro do you keep people from turning dates and amounts into fog? Why Euro? I wrote that sentence on the inside cover of my ledger after we hung up. It went under the pharmacy receipt and above a note that said, Monday, 9 o'clock, Bursar office, audit log. So I a Euro am asking you this here because I still think about it. If you Euro VE ever been the records person in your family, at work, anywhere, did people make you feel cold when you were only trying to be exact? Put the proof object in the comments. The receipt, the text, the bank line, whatever saved you from someone else's Euro S version of the story. At 10:22 p.m. I pulled out of the pharmacy lot and drove toward my apartment with the envelopes flat on the passenger seat. The Fairmont was behind me, still glowing on the hill. But the first official copy of the truth was writing beside me in a paper sleeve. The Monday meeting with Mr. Cole turned into 3 weeks of emails, scanned forms, and the kind of quiet consequences nobody at the Fairmont alumni room had imagined when they printed that toast card. I gave the originals to Tessa at 8:57 a.m. through the side window of the Bursar Euro S office. She had a blue clipboard ready, with a chain of custody form clipped to it, and a black pen tied to the board with fraying string. Why Euro original spiral ledger? Received from Nora Bell. Why Euro, she read as she wrote. Why Euro offer donor email printouts. 1 housing deposit receipt, 1 portal export, 1 pharmacy copy receipt. Why Euro? Why Euro Thay ledger has my payroll notes in the back. Why Euro, I said, because I still over-explained when I was nervous. Why Euro Thay scholarship pages are marked with yellow tabs. Why Euro Tessa looked up over her glasses. Why Euro that helps. It doesn't a Euro T hurt. Why Euro? Mr. Cole came out of his office at 9:06 with his sleeves rolled once at the wrist and a paper cup of coffee he never seemed to drink. He did not ask me how I felt. He asked if I had kept the email headers. When I said yes, he nodded once and said, Why Euro G good. Compliance needs the full path. Why Euro? By Wednesday afternoon, the first university email came to my campus account with the subject line, Notice of Preliminary Scholarship Review. Donor Restricted Award BEL Ellen. It was copied to Mr. Cole, Financial Aid Compliance, and a name I didn't a Euro T recognize from University Council. The message was dry and careful. It said the donor award had been Why Euro Paplied outside stated restriction. Why Euro that the department was Why Euro reviewing authorization pathways. Why Euro and that no student conduct hold had been placed on my record. I read that last sentence 3 times at my kitchen table with a bowl of cereal going soggy beside my laptop. No student conduct hold had been placed on my record. It was the first official document that said, in university language, that I was not the problem. On Friday at 4:41 p.m., another email arrived, this one from student accounts, with a PDF attached called Bell_Ethan_housing_repayment_proposal.pdf. I was not supposed to be on that email. I think my name was in the CC line under Why Euro affected student claimant. Why Euro, which sounded like a person in a file cabinet. The PDF listed Ethana Euro S housing account ending 4412, the misapplied donor credit, late fees reversed, and a proposed repayment schedule of 12 monthly payments beginning June 15. The first payment was $612.50. I stared at that number because it was so ordinary. It was the cost of a month of groceries and my electric bill. It was a number my family had turned into a speech, a dinner, a printed accusation, and my mother a Euro S request that I stand up in front of donors and apologize. At 5:03 p.m., my father texted, Dad, your mother and I got a notice. Please don't a Euro T answer any university questions without talking to us first. I typed, I already answered the university with documents. Then I deleted Why Euro you with documenta. Euro because it sounded sharp, even though it was true. Me, IA, Euro, LL, respond to official requests through my own email. He sent back 3 dots, then nothing. The family group chat had been quiet since the dinner, except for Aunt Paula sending a picture of her begonias, like we were all going to pretend we had not watched a public accusation collapse over dessert plates. That changed the following Tuesday when Marcy wrote at 7:18 a.m. Mom, we need to get on the same page before the alumni board meets. Ethan is being treated like he did something criminal. I was standing at the bus stop on Linden with my lunch bag hooked over my wrist and my phone brightness too low for the sun. I adjusted it and read her message again. Me. Did he receive the housing credit? Mom, that is not the point of what I'm saying. Ethan came in 2 minutes later. Ethan, I didn't know Euro T asked for your donor money. Nora. That was the first time he had called it my donor money in writing. I took a screenshot before I answered. Me? Did you know the credit was on your housing account? Ethan. Mom handled the finance stuff. You know that. Me. Did you tell people at dinner I was bitter about your scholarship? No answer. At noon, while I was entering payroll corrections in the student employment office, an email from the Alumni Association landed in my inbox. Subject: Alumni Board Status Update. Ethan Bell. It was addressed to Ethan, copied to Marcy, my father, Mr. Cole, and, again, me. The language was polished but firm. Ethana Euro's new graduate seat on the Young Alumni Advisory Board was being placed on probation pending the scholarship review. He could attend open events, but he could not speak on donor stewardship panels, represent the scholarship program, or participate in award selection discussions. I read the email once, then minimized it when my supervisor walked by with a stack of timesheets. My hands felt clumsy on the keyboard, so I got up and filled my water bottle from the hallway fountain. The spout hissed and sprayed a little over my sleeve. At 12:14 p.m., Ethan texted me privately. Ethan, you got what you wanted. Congrats. I leaned against the cinderblock wall by the vending machines and looked at the message. Then at the sticky note on my phone case where I had written Mr. Collia's words from Monday. Do not debate facts by text. Preserve, don't a Euro T perform. So I didn't a Euro T perform. I saved the screenshot to the folder labeled Bell Scholarship Review and went back to my desk. By the third week, the tone changed. Dad, could you write something saying you don't a Euro T want Ethan punished? It might help reduce the board action. Mom, we are not asking you to lie. Just say this was an administrative misunderstanding and that the family is resolving it privately. Ethan, I can pay you back directly if that makes this stop. That message came at 9:32 p.m. while I was sorting laundry on my bed. Socks in one pile, work shirts in another. I sat down beside the laundry basket and opened the repayment PDF again. The money was not supposed to go to me. That was the whole point. It was donor restricted, with a memo, a ledger line, and a housing receipt that showed exactly where it landed. I answered after 11 minutes. Me? I won't a Euro T accept private repayment for a restricted university award. Follow the plan with student accounts. Mom replied almost instantly. Mom, you are choosing paperwork over your brother. I looked at the spiral ledger on my desk, now thinner because the originals were logged at the Bursar Euro's office, and I only had copies. The yellow tabs stuck out unevenly. My handwriting filled the margins where I had once tried to make every dollar legible enough that nobody could call me careless. Me, IA Euro M, choosing not to fund Ethana's comfort with my silence. No one answered that night. The next morning, Tessa forwarded me a scan from compliance. It showed the donor restriction email with its original header, the housing deposit receipt, and a new stamp across the top in blue ink, verified against university records. I printed one copy at the student employment printer, 3 pages, warm from the tray. I slid them into a plain folder and wrote the date on the tab. For once, I did not add an explanation underneath. I carried the plain folder home in my backpack, tucked between my campus payroll binder and a bag of groceries from the discount shelf at Kroger. By 6:12 p.m., I was in my apartment kitchen, writing the receipt numbers from the folder onto the top page of my spiral ledger because that was still how I calmed myself down. Pen, date, amount, source. At 6:27, my phone lit up with Ethan Euro's name. He had not called me since the Fairmont dinner. Every message had come through Mom, Aunt Linda, or one of those group texts where people used words like misunderstanding while attaching no documents. I let it ring until voicemail picked up. 30 seconds later, a voicemail appeared. Why, Euro Nora, Ida, S me. Can you call me back? IA, Euro M, outside your building. IA, Euro M, not coming up unless you say Ida, Euro S, okay? Why, Euro? I walked to the window over the radiator. His gray Honda was at the curb with the hazard lights blinking, half in front of the fire hydrant, because Ethan still parked like rules were suggestions that applied to other people. He stood on the sidewalk in his graduation fleece, one hand in his pocket, looking at the buzzer panel. I did not buzz him in. I called him from the kitchen and watched him answer. Why Euro Jua Euro Re actually outside? Why Euro, I said. Why Euro Gia, why Euro, he said. Why I Dina Euro T want to ambush you at work. Why Euro I thought is a low bar, Ethan. Why Euro? He looked down at the pavement. Through the glass, I could see his shoulders move when he exhaled. Why I know. Why Euro? I stayed by the window with the folder under my left hand on the counter. Why Euro you hot do you want? Why Euro? Why I got the repayment agreement. Why Euro? He said. Why Euro? The one with the 12 payments. June 15th. Why Euro? Why Euro Thun? You should sign it before the deadline. Why Euro? Why Euro? Yeah, I did. Why Euro? That stopped my pen. Why Euro? You signed it. Why Euro? This afternoon. They emailed me the DocuSign at 2:44. I signed at 3:10. Why Euro? He paused. Why Euro? Dad told me not to. Mom said we should wait until she talked to someone on the advancement side. Why Euro? Why Euro? Advancement is not going to erase a housing charge that compliance verified. Why Euro? Why I know that now. Why Euro? I watched a city bus pull up at the corner. A woman in scrubs stepped off holding a takeout bag and a rolled umbrella. Life kept making small, normal movements around whatever mess my family had made. Ethan said, Why Euro you can I come up for 10 minutes? Why Euro no? Why Euro? He nodded, even though I had said it through a phone. Why Euro poke? Why Euro? That made me more suspicious than if he had argued. He turned toward his car, opened the passenger door, and took out a white envelope. Why I brought something. I can leave it in your mailbox. Why Euro? Why Euro you hut, is it? Why Euro you hut a copy of the signed repayment plan and a check. Why Euro? Why Euro? For me. Why Euro? Why Euro? Jaya. Why Euro? Why Euro? Geo. Euro M. Not taking money from you in a parking lot. Why Euro? Why Euro Yida Euro S? Not for you to forgive me. Why Euro? He said quickly. Why Euro Yida Euro S for the application fee you paid last year? The one for the summer finance certificate. Mom told me it was covered after my housing got fixed. I didn't a Euro T ask where the money came from. My fingers tightened around the phone. The finance certificate. $95. I had paid it on my debit card after Mom said, Why Euro JUA, Euro L make it up when the accounts settle. Why Euro? I had written it in the ledger because I wrote down everything. Even money I was embarrassed to need back. Why Euro FOW? Do you know about that fee? Why Euro? I asked. Why Euro Tessa mentioned there were smaller charges in the portal notes that didn't Euro T belong in the same conversation. She didn't Euro T give details. I checked old texts with Mom, then I found the Venmo request you sent her. It was still there. Why Euro? I had forgotten the Venmo request. August 18th, 9:03 p.m. certificate application, $95. It had sat unpaid until I deleted the app for a while because looking at the red reminder made me feel pathetic. Ethan said, Why Euro Yai? Put the receipt in the envelope. Check number 118. $95. Why Euro? Why Euro Jew? Came here to pay me back $95. Why Euro? Why Euro? No. I came because I should have said something at dinner. Why Euro? The word dinner landed between us like a glass set too hard on a table. I looked at the Fairmont alumni room in my head. The cream tablecloths, the little black toast card, Marcia Euro S hand on the back of my chair, her voice asking me to stand. I made myself look instead at the real objects in front of me. The folder tab with Todaya Euro S date, my kettle with a crack in the handle. The ledger opened to a clean line. Why Euro you hut? Exactly should you have said. Why Euro? I asked. He rubbed his forehead. Why Euro? I thought. I knew something was off. Why Euro? I did not help him fill the space. He continued. Why Euro? When my housing hold disappeared, Mom said Dad had handled it. Then I saw an email on her iPad. It had your name and donor award in the preview. I didn't a Euro T open it all the way. Why Euro? Why Euro? Why win? Why Euro? Why Euro? A February. Before the spring bill deadline. Why Euro? The radiator clicked behind me. Why Euro? You knew in February that my name was connected to the money. Why Euro? Why I knew there was something with your award. Why Euro? He said. Why I told myself it was a financial aid adjustment. Mom said you were making a big deal because you were mad I was graduating first. Why Euro? I laughed once, sharp enough that he looked up at my window. Why Euro? You let her say that in front of 96 people. Why Euro? I did. Why Euro? Why Euro? Wand, you let her call me the missing scholarship problem. Why Euro? His mouth tightened. Why Euro? Yeah, I did. There was no dramatic collapse in his voice that almost made it worse. He sounded like a man reading the correct line from a form after months of enjoying the benefit of the wrong one. Why euro yeah, I wanted the housing fixed. Why euro, he said. Why I was scared, they euro D. Cancel my room and I euro D have to tell Coach Martin I was commuting from home. I had the alumni board thing, the donor lunch, the graduation photos. Mom kept saying it would all get cleaned up after commencement. Why euro? Why euro? So you chose clean pictures. Why euro? He closed his eyes. Why euro, Jice? Why euro? I wrote that down before I could stop myself. 6:41 p.m., Ethan admitted he saw email preview in February. Wanted housing fixed. Signed repayment plan. The scratch of the pen steadied me. Ethan said, why euro pair? You writing this down? Why euro Jice? Why euro? Why euro poke? Why euro? That was new too. He did not tell me I was being weird. He did not say I was building a case against my own family. He stood under the yellow apartment light and accepted that my notebook was part of the conversation. Why euro Gia? Euro M, sorry. Why euro, he said. Why euro oofer? Letting them put it on you. For knowing enough to ask and choosing not to. For the toast card, I didn't a euro T write it, but I saw it before Mom handed it to Uncle Ray. Why euro? I closed my eyes for 1 second. Why euro Jew saw the card. Why euro oat, the check-in table. It was clipped to the seating chart. Mom said it was a joke that would make donors understand why the scholarship fund needed better oversight. Why euro? I turned the ledger page and wrote that too. Why euro Ethan? Why euro? I said. I am not going to turn this into forgiveness because you finally described it accurately. Why euro? Why euro Gia, euro M, not asking you to? Why euro? Why euro Jew are asking me for something? Or you would have mailed the check. Why euro? He looked toward the building door. Why I want to tell Mr. Cole what I knew. Directly, I dona euro T. No, if that makes it worse for me, why euro? Why euro pit probably does. Why euro? Why euro Gia? Why euro? Why euro? Why euro Tethan? Decide whether you euro redoing it because it is true, or because you want me to tell people you euro redecent. Why euro? He took that without answering right away. A delivery driver came into the lobby with 2 pizza boxers. My downstairs neighbor buzzed him in, and for a moment, Ethan and I could see each other through the open vestibule door. Him on the sidewalk, me upstairs in the window reflection, both of us holding phones like we were negotiating a bill. Finally, he said, why euro Gia, euro LL? Email Cole tonight and copy you. Why euro? Why euro? Use your university email. Why euro I will. Why euro? Why euro? Why euro dodo not summarize my feelings. Do not call it family confusion. Say what you saw, what you did, and when. Why euro? Why I can do that. Why euro? Why euro? Why and leave the envelope with the building manager. Do not put it in my mailbox. Why euro? Why euro? Poke. Why euro? I hung up first. At 7:18 p.m., an email arrived from Ethana Euro's student account. Subject line. Statement regarding Bell housing payment and donor award. Mr. Cole was in the to field. I was copied. There were 2 attachments, signed _repayment _4412.pdf and check 118 Nora Bell _95.pdf. I did not open them right away. I stood at the sink and washed 1 mug, 1 fork, 1 plate. Then I dried my hands and sat down with the folder Mr. Cole had stamped in blue ink. Ethan had finally put his name on part of the truth. I still did not owe him my silence. Mr. Cole answered Ethan's email at 8:14 the next morning. I was at the payroll counter in the student employment office with a stack of orange time correction forms clipped to a board. The inbox banner appeared on my phone while I was matching a dining hall supervisora euro S initials to a late time sheet YG Ms. Bell. Why he wrote, why I am acknowledging receipt of the statement from Ethan Bell and the attached repayment agreement. The compliance file will remain open until all redirected funds are restored according to the donor restriction and the ledger correction is verified. Why euro? He copied Tessa Rowan, the Dean of Student Accounts, and a University Council address I had never seen before. I read it once, locked my phone, and went back to the time corrections because 3 students were waiting for their pay to clear before rent was due. That was the first morning I remembered choosing the queue in front of me over the fire behind me. At 10:30, Tessa walked over from the Bursar desk with a folded yellow sticky note stuck to the top of a printout. Why, euro you Cole said you should have a copy for your records. Why, euro, she said quietly. The printout was a Bursar portal activity export, dated that morning, with Ethana Euro S housing account ending in 4412. The line at the bottom said, repayment schedule activated. First ACH due July 15th. Compliance hold remains. Tessa tapped the line with her fingernail. Y euro auth that hold means no duplicate transcript order and no alumni benefit certification until the account is current. Y euro. I nodded. Y euro, does he know that? Y euro. Y euro, how will when he requests them? Y euro. She did not smile when she said it. She was careful, like me. She had learned that a record could protect you only if you did not decorate it. During lunch, I walked to the registrar Euros office and handed in my part-time course plan. I had delayed it twice because my mother kept finding new ways to make Ithana Euros' schedule sound like a family emergency. His capstone dinner, his housing deposit, his graduation robe pickup, his alumni room seating chart, each one had arrived in my phone as if I were the spare extension cord in a drawer. The registrar clerk, a woman with silver glasses on a chain, stamped my form at 12:07. Y euro jua euro, respreading the certificate over to terms. Why euro, she asked. Why euro jais? Why euro? I said. Why I work 25 hours a week? Why euro? Why euro a that is allowed? Why euro? She said, sliding the pink copy back to me. Why euro dodo? Not let anyone tell you otherwise. Why euro? I kept the pink copy in the front pocket of my folder. It felt ridiculous to be proud of a stamp, but I was. It was small, square, and mine. That evening, my mother called 3 times between 6:02 and 6:19. I let each call go to voicemail. I was at my kitchen table with a bowl of soup, my laptop, and the payroll manual open to the section on summer student appointments. Her first voicemail was short. Why euro Nora, call me. Your father and I need to understand what you and Ethan sent. Why euro? The second one had dishes clinking in the background. Why euro Jew cannot keep forcing official people into private family matters. It makes all of us look unstable. Why euro? The third one was the old voice. The one that used my name like a warning. Why euro Juno Ethan has interviews coming up. If this affects his references, that is on you. Why euro? I wrote the timestamps in my spiral ledger because habit still steadied my hand. Then I closed the notebook without answering her. At 7:05, my father texted, "Mom is upset. Just tell Cole you want to resolve this quietly." I typed 3 drafts and deleted all of them. The fourth one was only 2 sentences. The Bursar file is official because donor money was redirected through university accounts. I will not ask Mr. Cole to make it quiet. He did not reply. On Thursday, I picked up an extra payroll shift because May, the other assistant, had a dental appointment. I processed new hire packets for the summer library aides, W4, direct deposit form, ID copy, signed confidentiality agreement. Each folder had to be complete before the student could be paid. No one got paid because someone looked deserving at dinner. No one got paid because a parent said it would be embarrassing otherwise. At 3:40, Ethan sent me a text. Did Cole tell you about the hold? I stared at it while the office printer warmed up. Yes. I wrote. He replied, Mom says you can ask them to lift it if IA euro am on the plan. I did not answer right away. I finished printing the library packets, refilled the stapler, and signed the outgoing payroll log. Then I wrote back from the bench outside the administration building, where the brick wall was warm through my shirt. IA euro M. Not asking for a benefit while the money is still missing. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. So, data euro esset. I looked across the quad at the Bursar windows. Tessa was helping a parent with a tuition statement, pointing to a line item through the glass. Theta euro s, the boundary. I wrote, on Friday morning, I removed the family group chat from my Phonia Euro S pinned messages. I did not leave it. I did not announce anything. I moved it below payroll, registrar, Tessa, and my landlord. When Marcy posted that Aunt Linda needed a ride from the airport, I did not open the thread. When my cousin tagged me about centerpieces for an anniversary brunch, I did not volunteer to fix the spreadsheet. At 5:15, I clocked out, put my badge in my bag, and walked to the campus bookstore. I bought 1 used accounting textbook, 2 black pens, and a pack of page flags with my own debit card. The receipt printed with the last 4 digits of my account, and I folded it into my ledger behind the Registraro S pink copy. I was still careful with money. I still kept records. I still checked balances before buying groceries. But I was learning the difference between being responsible and being available for every mess with my last name on it. That night, I made my own calendar for July. Work shifts in blue, class deadlines in green, rent due in red. Ithana euro SACH repayment date on the 15th. written in plain black ink because it was a fact, not a favor. On July 15th, I got to payroll at 7:42 in the morning with a paper cup of coffee, my lunch in a grocery bag, and my spiral ledger tucked into the side pocket of my backpack. I did not open the Bursar portal first. I made myself run the student time card audit because that was my actual job, and because I had promised myself I would stop building my whole day around whether Ethan did the right thing. At 10:18, Tessa walked past the payroll window with a stack of blue deposit slips clipped to a manila folder. She paused, tapped twice on the counter, and said, "Why euro a check? Your campus email when you get a second." Why euro? I waited until I finished approving to late timesheets. Then I opened the message from Mr. Cole. The subject line was plain, Bell account compliance update. The email said the first scheduled ACH payment had posted to the university account at 8:06 a.m. The compliance hold would remain until the full restricted amount was restored and the ledger correction completed. But the repayment plan was active and no exception letter would be issued for Ethan S. alumni certification. There were 3 attachments: a receipt with the transaction ID, a revised account note, a PDF export showing the balance after payment 1. I printed 1 copy, 3-hole punched it, and put it behind the July tab in my binder. I wrote the transaction ID in black ink beside the date on my wall calendar when I got home. That was the first time I let myself erase one old note from the side of the calendar. It said, "Why euro you call mom about family photo times?" Why euro? It had been sitting there since May, useless and accusing. Like I owed everybody a prettier version of what happened. I replaced it with, "Why euro book oil change?" Why euro that Friday. Marcy called during my lunch break. I was sitting on a bench outside the library with a turkey sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Her name came up on the screen, and I let it go to voicemail. The transcript appeared a minute later. Why euro Nora? Your father and I are trying to move forward. Ethan has interviews, and people are still asking why there was trouble with the university. You donna, euro T, have to keep punishing us. Families correct things privately. Why euro? I saved the voicemail to the same folder as the others. Then I finished my sandwich. I did not send her a paragraph. I did not attach the donor restriction email again. I did not explain the housing receipt, the toast card, or the Bursar export. I had explained until my throat went dry in that alumni room. The record had answered after that. At 5:30, I stopped by the copy shop on Maple because I needed course packets for my fall certificate class. The clerk handed me a receipt, and I caught myself checking the subtotal twice. Old habit. Useful habit. I put the receipt in my wallet and walked home past the Fairmont. The alumni room windows were lit for another event. White tablecloths again. Gold chairs again. Someone had set place cards along a front table. For a second, I could see that dinner as if I were standing in the doorway with the toast card in my hand. My name turned into a problem for 96 people to look at. Then a catering manager stepped outside carrying a crate of empty glass bottles, and the picture broke into ordinary noise. Traffic, a bus hissing at the curb, a man laughing into his phone. My own keys in my hand. I kept walking. My boundary was not dramatic. It was a sentence I practiced until I could say it without adding footnotes. I will not fund Ethan a euro-esque comfort with my silence. That meant I would not apologize for money I never touched. I would not call a donor award a family misunderstanding. I would not sit at another dinner where my records were treated like bad manners. If Ethan kept making payments, the account would show that. If he missed them, the account would show that too. The ledger did not need my anger to be useful. In August, I started my first certificate class on Tuesday nights. I worked payroll in the morning, ate dinner from a plastic container in the student center, and walked to room 214 with my notebook and a pen that still had Bursar office tape around the cap. Tessa sometimes waved from the desk when I passed. Mr. Cole nodded if he saw me in the hallway. Nobody clapped for me, nobody made a speech. The stamped forms, the posted payment, and my own name on the course roster were enough. I still keep the spiral ledger on the second shelf of my desk, not as a shrine, as a tool. Rent, tuition, payroll, receipts, dates, proof that I can trust what I wrote down, even when someone louder tells the room a cleaner story. That is the end of my story. If you were standing in that graduation dinner with a toast card accusing you in front of donors, would you have apologized to keep peace, or opened the ledger and let the record speak? Tell me in the comments, because I still think about how many people choose quiet just to get through the meal. If this story made you check who benefits from your silence, subscribe, turn on notifications, and look in the description for the key proof objects from Nora's case. The donor restriction email, the housing deposit receipt, and the Bursar ledger export.